Chapter 1061. Li Yao received Jialo Feng in Emperor Li's city. Li Yao received Jialo Feng in Emperor Li's city. Naturally, he was aware of the identity of Jialo Feng, descendant of the Jialo royal clan, the future king of the Rock family, whose status was extremely esteemed and honorable. Kong Xian sent him to make the visit in person, demonstrated the importance attached to this visit. Jialo Feng greets His Royal Highness of Dali. At this time, Jialo Feng stood in front of the great cultivators of the Dali dynasty, facing Li Yao. Although he said he was here to greet Li Yao, he did not actually move to pay his respect. His eyes were sharp and sly, as if he felt that as a demonic noble, there was no need for him to salute. Li Yao was not upset. The king of Jialo was said to be unparalleled in speed in the demon peacock realm. According to some anecdotes of the demon world, the strength of the king of Jialo was not weaker than the peacock emperor. The two demonic beasts were both top figures in the demonic world until the later enlightenment of the peacock emperor, who then became the demon emperor, thus determined the current landscape of the demon peacock realm. "What was the matter for the demon peacock city to name you as an ambassador?" asked Li Yao with a smile. He did not mind whether the others saluted him or not. It was all in line with the character of the Jialo royal clan. Demon Peacock City wishes to join forces with Emperor Li's city to annihilate Emperor Xia's realm. After that, the Demon Peacock City will fight with Emperor Li's city for the right to control the empty realm in the next 10 years. Jialo Feng replied curtly, getting straight to the heart of the matter. A flash of a bright light passed through his eyes. Demonic beasts were demonic beasts after all, straightforward, but he rather liked this straightforwardness. Yes. Li Yao nodded in agreement. This was exactly what he had been planning. Get rid of an opponent first, and after taking over Emperor Xia's city, they could then deal with the Demon Peacock City. They had taken the initiative to fight with Emperor Xia's city to signal to Emperor Li's city, suggesting that both of them had a shared enemy in Emperor Xia's realm. Thus, there could be reason for a real alliance. "But I have two conditions," Jialo Feng said. "Oh?" Li Yao looked at the Jialo Feng, somewhat surprised. Jialo Feng was the messenger, came to request an alliance, and he has demands? "Tell me," Li Yao responded with some interest. "First, I don't have much confidence in Emperor Li's realm based on past experiences. For the alliance, when our two armies attacked Emperor Xia's city, the army from Emperor Li's city and the Demon Peacock City were to be mixed together, so that if either side has any dishonesty, the other party can renege on the alliance so that both sides are accountable and would not betray the other," Jialo Feng said. Li Yao furrowed his brows and frowned. To mix the army together? In the past, in terms of strategy, Emperor Li's realm was indeed more superior, and it was an area that the Demon Peacock realm had always been the most challenged. In the last battle, it was how Emperor Li's realm was able to win the control of the empty realm. It was no wonder that the Demon Peacock realm did not trust them. Emperor Li's city had already declared war against Emperor Xia's city, and both sides had suffered numerous deaths and injuries. On the contrary, Demon Peacock City only engaged in just a few small-scale battles, and let's not forget we have not yet launched any accusations about that. Yuan Jin piped up on the side. "Alliance has not yet been formed, and you already doubted us. Is this why you have come here?" "The last battle for the empty realm was a good indicator," Jialo Feng responded easily. "Not to mention, for the two armies to mix together served as a bind not only to Emperor Li's realm, but also to us, to ensure that neither side will turn on the other. This is just for bringing the destruction of Emperor Xia's city. Emperor Li's realm should have no reason to refuse such an alliance." Li Yao and the Yuan Jin gazed at Jialo Feng, and Li Yao continued, "What else?" To be allied in the battle meant that slaying of the imperial flag was not a priority, but to destroy everyone of Emperor Xia's city, especially Yi Futian and that damned beast. "If they are not dead, we would not slay the flag," Jialo Feng said coldly. Li Yao and Yuan Jin exchanged a look, a faint smile in their eyes. They were very satisfied with this grievance. Not long ago, they had heard that the messenger of Emperor Xia's city had just conveyed the words of Xia Qingyuan when Jialo Feng wanted to kill him violently within the city limit of Demon Peacock City, revealing the depth of their resentment. "I have heard some of the words spoken by Yi Futian and that beast, and it was indeed a great insult to Princess Kong Xian." Xia Qingyuan even dared to send messenger to express the appreciation that Yi Futian had for Princess Kong Xian. Perhaps Xia Qingyuan thought that as her deputy, Yi Futian is now qualified to be on the same level as Princess Kong Xian. However, the aim of the battle for the empty realm is the slaying of the imperial flag. Is this the suggestion of the princess or your own? Yuan Jin's eyes stayed on Jialo Feng. Her Royal Highness is the most noble lady in our demonic realm, and we would not tolerate anyone to insult her. This is the common wish of all the major clans of our demonic realm. Jialo Feng was extremely sharp, but avoided giving a direct answer, and Yuan Jin suddenly revealed a touch of smile. Kong Xian, as the daughter of the Demon Peacock Emperor, and with a beauty not seen often in her generation, certainly played no second fiddle to Xia Qingyuan. With such a demonic woman, how could the descendants of these great demonic clans not have some ideas of their own about her? Yi Futian and his mount not only humiliated Kong Xian, but also humiliated all the great demons of the demonic clans. Return and tell Her Royal Highness to wait for my news, Li Yao said with a smile. Jialo Feng nodded and left. After he left, Li Yao looked at Yuan Jin and said, "Senior brother, what are your thoughts?" In the past, of all the battles for the empty realm, the Demon Peacock realm had won the least number of times, because strategy is not their forte. Although demonic beasts obtained wisdom through enlightenment, but their nature was still that of the demon. We had fought many wars with Emperor Xia's city and suffered considerable casualties. The Demon Peacock city has also made enemy with Emperor Xia's city, but they dared not attack easily, and because they worried that we will take advantage of them, hence their request to form an alliance with us. It was indeed the best solution they could think of. Their request to mingle the armies together was probably indicative of trauma caused by previous battles for the empty realm. Yuan Jin said with smiles. So, this matter can be done? Li Yao said with a smile. There was no flaw in it that he could find. The Demon Peacock realm seemed to really want to form an alliance. Yuan Jin nodded. The demonic beasts of the demonic realm will not use the reputation of Kong Xian as a pretext to set up a trap. What's more, Yi Futian had killed many demonic beasts, including beasts of the royal clan such as the Rock. Demonic beasts are straightforward in nature and would not do such things. Otherwise, of all the battles for the empty realm, the Demon Peacock realm would probably win more than half of them. The only flaw was that although we could say that this alliance was possible because of the situation, it was still far too smooth. In my previous calculations, it should have taken longer. Perhaps at the end of the 3-month period would the alliance be reached, Yuan Jin said. In fact, his suspicion was not without reason. Kong Xian and Kong Zhan did not think of forming an alliance so quickly. However, the great demons of all the great royal clans hated Yi Futian, and so they had banded together and pled. Kong Xian also hated Yi Futian and that black-winged condor, so it was natural that she would go along with it, hence the trip made by Jialo Feng at this time. Sire, how is Yi Futian as a person? Yuan Jin asked Li Yao. He had heard that Li Yao had some contact with Yi Futian, although not much. I only know that this person came from the land of 9 states in the lower worlds of Emperor Xia's realm, and master of 1 state there. He is very talented, but extremely arrogant and unbridled, causing all the holy lands of 9 states to besiege the holy land where he was, and it was almost destroyed. Even though I was not personally in attendance of the battle, but I did hear later that his wife was killed and it explained why Yi Futian hated me. Li Yao said, but once he was the master of a state, known as unparalleled in the lower worlds. He must have been extremely proud of himself to go to the Demon Peacock City with 1 man and 1 beast to inflame the situation. His conceit was demonstrated in his desire to use his own power to vanquish the Demon Peacock City, killing many demons. From this perspective, he was indeed very outstanding. He probably wanted to kill me after he had flattened Demon Peacock City. Someone who had gained the trust of Emperor Xia and Xia Qingyuan, and could also fight with Kong Xian, was naturally gifted, and his arrogance was not unexpected, Yuan Jin nodded. However, this time Emperor Li's realm is the strongest. There was no need to use tricks. We just need to go with the flow of the situation, but make sure to guard against surprise attacks from the other side. There is no problem with the alliance, but it needs to be laid out carefully so that if there are any surprise, we could easily deal with it. I'm afraid we have to trouble you then, said Li Yao. Let me go and calculate. Yuan Jin stood up to leave, and Li Yao also stood up to see him off. To Yuan Jin, this prince demonstrated extreme respect. Even in front of his subordinates, he had always addressed him as senior brother. The status of Yuan Jin and the treatment he received was Xiao Sheng's dream. Though he was by the side of Xia Qingyuan, he still could not receive such recognition. The news that Jialo Feng went to seek alliance with Emperor Li's city quickly spread to Emperor Xia's city. Xia Qingyuan once again sent Gong Sunzhong to deliver a message to Emperor Li's city. However, this time he had only delivered the message halfway before he was chased out and running for his life again with injury. Gong Sunzhong did not complete the task that was given by Xia Qingyuan, so all he could do was to press on, but every time he left with injury, it was a very miserable business. The Demon Peacock City seemed to be in no mood for talks except in its determination to deal with Emperor Xia's city. Gong Sunzhong returned to Emperor Xia's city to see Xia Qingyuan, and there was blood on him. He had once again returned with injury. Though he was slightly embarrassed, he still maintained his grace. He said to Xia Qingyuan, Gong Sunzhong had disappointed the princess. It seemed that Kong Xian's resentment was very deep. This is not your fault, no need to blame yourself, Xiaoxing said. Many people looked at Yi Futian, who was not far away, and their looks were not friendly. For the Demon Peacock realm and Emperor Li's realm to reach an alliance so quickly was undoubtedly disastrous news for them. All of this was caused by Yi Futian. Gong Sunzhong looked at Xia Qingyuan and said, It's not just Kong Xian. All the demons in Demon Peacock City held deep grudges. As soon as they saw me, they started to give chase. It was obviously a situation that had been repeated many times before. Everyone naturally understood what Gong Sunzhong was referring to. Yi Futian had repeatedly provoked the other, therefore the people of the Demon Peacock realm must have treated him like Yi Futian. Xia Qingyuan looked calmly at the people, without the slightest sense of disturbance. Yi Futian had already told her the whole plan. Under the circumstances that the setup had already been completed by Yi Futian, the victory of the battle for the empty realm was without a doubt. But Yi Futian wanted revenge, not just mere victory. However, she could not reveal this detail. Even to her most trusted subordinates, she must conceal this fact. Otherwise, it would cause great suspicion once it was known. Gong Sunzhong would venture a word. At this time, Gong Sunzhong said while bowed his head to Xia Qingyuan. Speak. Xia Qingyuan looked at him. The bell must be untied by the one who tied it. For the battle of the empty realm, some sacrifices are inevitable. Gong Sunzhong said, and suddenly all eyes were fastened upon Gong Sunzhong, who had his head down. This matter was caused by Yi Futian, so how could they not understand the sacrifices implied by Gong Sunzhong? Chapter 1062. This incident was indeed caused by Yi Futian. Gong Sunzhong went to the Demon Peacock City several times, and was attacked by the demons each and every time. On behalf of Yi Futian, he had endured the brunt of the anger of the demonic clans, and there must be a lot of resentment in his heart. This incident was indeed caused by Yi Futian. Gong Sunzhong went to the Demon Peacock City several times, and was attacked by the demons each and every time. On behalf of Yi Futian, he had endured the brunt of the anger of the demonic clans, and there must be a lot of resentment in his heart. Now that the alliance between the Emperor Li's realm and the Demon Peacock realm was being negotiated, wanting to attack together, Gong Sunzhong thought of handing Yi Futian over to Kong Xian to quell the anger of the Demon Peacock realm, thus maintaining the confrontation evenly three-sided. On the surface, it seemed feasible, but in fact, it was not so simple. Xia Qingyuan's stance aside, even if she was willing to surrender Yi Futian, but what if after the Demon Peacock realm had executed Yi Futian, they continued their alliance with Emperor Li's realm? They would have lost a strong fighter in vain, and not to mention the many strong cultivators around Yi Futian such as Yu Sheng and the others. If they surrendered Yi Futian, then the support of these people would also evaporate. It was undoubtedly akin to breaking one of their own arms. Even though many did not like Yi Futian, but they had to recognize his strength. Gong Sunzhong's injuries were proof that Yi Futian was way more powerful, who could repeatedly provoke Kong Xian but always emerged in one piece. Furthermore, Xia Qingyuan was willing to promote Yi Futian as her deputy, and sent Gong Sun Zhong to the Demon Peacock City for him to show friendly intentions to Kong Xian. Her appreciation of Yi Futian and his importance to her were apparently. Naturally, she would not have sent him. Gong Sun Zhong's proposal could only satisfy his own displeasure, and the princess was unlikely to agree. Yi Futian glanced at Gong Sun Zhong, and he looked calm and without disturbance. Gong Sun Zhong's displeasure of him was apparent at old Master Zhao's birthday banquet. Now, with all that had happened in the empty realm, surely his displeasure toward him had increased, so he had made such suggestion even when he knew that there was no possibility. He still spoke of it, showed how deep that resentment ran. The future leader of Divine Cloud Valley really did not care about offending him. However, it was expected. Even though he was talented and named as deputy of the princess, but this was the Divine Cloud Valley, which had its own status and power in its own right. The past leader of Divine Cloud Valley was the personal armorer of Emperor Xia, and even the Shao clan desired to form an alliance with the Divine Cloud Valley through marriage, and like Li Hen Heaven, it stood at the epitome of power in Emperor Xia's realm. With its solid backing from Emperor Xia, Yi Futian's feeling was the least of their concerns. Xia Qingyuan looked at Gong Sun Zhong and said, "Gong Sun Zhong, what kind of sacrifice do you mean?" Upon hearing Xia Qingyuan's words, many people showed surprise. The princess was deliberately pretended not to understand the insinuation made by Gong Sun Zhong. With his head still bowed, Gong Sun Zhong said, "If Emperor Li's realm and the Demon Peacock realm formed an alliance, we will undoubtedly lose the battle of the empty realm, and 10 years of preparation will be wasted in an instant." And the cause of the current situation was none other than Yi Futian's arrogant behavior. If Yi Futian is sent to the Demon Peacock City to quench their anger, they would naturally stop their alliance with Emperor Li's realm. In the battle for the empty realm, is the Demon Peacock realm an enemy to Emperor Xia's realm? Asked Xia Qingyuan. Yes, Gong Sun Zhong bowed his head and replied. Yi Futian alone was able to contain the Demon Peacock City, killing many great demons, so what is the reason for sending him to the Demon Peacock City? Xia Qingyuan continued her inquiry. Her voice was calm, but this calmness gave Gong Sun Zhong a sense of invisible pressure. The battlefield of the empty realm is not subjected to military discipline. Fighting alone led to the current crisis, Gong Sun Zhong responded. Xia Qingyuan nodded slightly and said, "You are right, Yi Futian did what he wanted, which led to the current difficulty we are in, and he should immediately relinquish his title as my deputy." But when Gong Sun Zhong, on the verge of impending battle, confused the focus of our army by suggesting sending our deputy to the enemy, disregard ranking and showed fear in fighting, Gong Sun Zhong, what do you think should be the punishment for that offense? When Gong Sun Zhong heard what Xia Qingyuan had to say, his face paled. He lifted his head up slightly and looked at Xia Qingyuan in the eyes. His heart was cold and he was extremely disappointed. There was nothing wrong with what Xia Qingyuan had said, but it showed Xia Qingyuan's attitude toward the two of them. The Divine Cloud Valley had followed the Emperor Xia for many years. His grandfather was the Master Royal Armorer. He, too, had hoped to follow and serve Xia Qingyuan. However, in the heart of Xia Qingyuan, the status of Gong Sun Zhong of Divine Cloud Valley was not as high as that of Yi Futian from the lower worlds of the 9 states. He proposed to sacrifice Yi Futian because he wanted to see how Xia Qingyuan would respond. And today he has his answer. The princess may decide what punishment Gong Sun Zhong deserves. Gong Sun Zhong looked into Xia Qingyuan's eyes, then bowed his head in respect, without any more illusions in his heart. "Princess," Shaoxing walked up and bowed to Xia Qingyuan. It was in a moment of confusion and frustration that Gong Sun Zhong acted like this, and also because of the concern regarding the battle for the empty realm. I hope the princess will consider these factors in meting out the punishment. "Princess, the brink of battle is really not a suitable time to shake the confidence of the army," Tianji also whispered. Xia Qingyuan still looked very calm, gazing at Gong Sun Zhong, and Gong Sun Zhong stood there with his head hung. It seemed a long time had passed before Xia Qingyuan said, "Go to the Demon Peacock City with this message. I, Xia Qingyuan, am willing to apologize on behalf of Yi Futian for his behavior." However, the confrontations between the armies were inevitable. But if the Demon Peacock City insisted on having its own way and joining with Emperor Li's realm to attack the Emperor Xia's city, we are prepared to die fighting, and will focus all our power against the cultivators of the Demon Peacock City, and we would rather let Emperor Li's realm win without a fight. Yes, Gong Sun Zhong replied. In addition, after the battle began, you will lead the cultivators of the Divine Cloud Valley to fight in the front, and use your action to prove your belief in our victory of the battle for the empty realm, and whether or not you are willing to make sacrifices. Xia Qingyuan continued. Her plain voice sounded chilling to many. The forward of the great battle had always suffered the greatest, and it had always been the responsibility of the 8 legions directly belonging to Emperor Xia. Now, Xia Qingyuan had asked Gong Sun Zhong to lead the Divine Cloud Valley to fight in the front. Such punishment was rather malicious, and Gong Sun Zhong had nothing to say. Since he said that Yi Futian could be sacrificed, then Xia Qingyuan would let him make some sacrifices himself. Yes, princess. Gong Sun Zhong looked very calm and without anger, and his expression did not change much, as if his heart was like stilled water. The more he cared, the easier it was for his emotion to be out of control. When true despair set in and he no longer had much to care, he was able to calmly look at everything. At this moment, Gong Sun Zhong had lost all hope for Xia Qingyuan, and no longer had any illusions. Go deliver the message, Xia Qingyuan said. She did not care about what Gong Sun Zhong thought, because this descendant of Divine Cloud Valley had also disappointed her greatly. Yes, Gong Sun Zhong nodded, then backed off and departed by levitation, went to the Demon Peacock City to pass on the message. Looking at Gong Sun Zhong departing, many felt sympathy. This extraordinary figure of the Divine Cloud Valley had wanted to win the heart of Princess Xia Qingyuan, but in the end, it worked against him. The princess was obviously very dissatisfied with him, so much so that she disregarded his thoughts on the matter altogether. Prepare for war. Xia Qingyuan casted a glance to the crowd, and suddenly every one of them stepped back and went on with war preparation. If their opponents were to attack with a united front, it would be a brutal, bloody battle. Gong Sun Zhong went to the Demon Peacock City to send the message, which enraged all the demonic royal clans who were furious and accused Xia Qingyuan for lack of sincerity and her threat to them. They declared their intention to capture Xia Qingyuan and proposed to immediately send out troops and joined forces to attack. Jialo Feng proposed to commingle of the imperial armies and joined forces to attack. This way, it would not only be difficult for Emperor Li's realm to use trickery against them, but it would also be difficult for Emperor Xia's cultivators to target them alone. Kong Xian and Kong Zhan had seriously considered the proposal of Jialo Feng. After learning about the content of Xia Qingyuan's message, it naturally filled Li Yao's heart with great joy, and he couldn't wait for the other 2 parties to shred each other to pieces during the war, so that they could reserve their strength and wait until Emperor Xia's city was vanquished before they turned on those demons. However, after the Demon Peacock City once again mentioned the proposal of Jialo Feng, in order to show sincerity, Li Yao was forced to agree, and the 2 sides formally made an alliance and began to prepare for the war, planning to take Emperor Xia's city in one fight without leaving any potential for future troubles. At the same time, Emperor Li's realm and the Demon Peacock realm began to prepare for war, reorganized their armies and its mixed formations and started to set up the camps of their mixed army. An invisible pressure shrouded Emperor Xia's city. In the empty realm, many people have said that Emperor Xia's city was finished. After this war, they may lose the qualification to fight for the control of the empty realm. This great confrontation in the Battle of the Empty Realm seemed to arrive a little faster than expected. After some days of preparation, this day, starting from Emperor Li's city, branches of army departed, same with the Demon Peacock City. All demons were mobilized from different directions, going toward one direction, the direction of Emperor Xia's city. The 2 imperial realms had officially formed an alliance, joined forces to invade Emperor Xia's city, ready to destroy it. On this day, the black clouds shrouded Emperor Xia's city, and it was different from before. This time it was no longer a single attack from Emperor Li's army, but 2 armed forces joined together against them. They had each left only some of their troops to guard the cities, and the rest of the cultivators were all involved in this battle. At this time in Emperor Xia's city, the great army gathered in the direction of the imperial flag, waiting. The vast sky in the distance had been filled with extremely powerful pressure, and the 2 great armies were approaching. Above the main hall, Xia Qingyuan looked into the distance, with Yi Futian stood next to her, also looking in the same direction. The setup had taken many days, and today it was finally the time to welcome this battle. This was also the situation that Yi Futian had been working hard to create. Chapter 1063. The armies of Emperor Li's realm and the Demon Peacock realm descended upon Emperor Xia's city. At this time, the location of the imperial flag of the Demon Peacock city was guarded by the descendants of the Green Bull King. The original form of the Green Bull King was a yak, so its strength was extremely powerful. The armies of Emperor Li's realm and the Demon Peacock realm descended upon Emperor Xia's city. At this time, the location of the imperial flag of the Demon Peacock city was guarded by the descendants of the Green Bull King. The original form of the Green Bull King was a yak, so its strength was extremely powerful. The clan of Green Bull King was extremely strong both in terms of offensive and defensive powers. If they formed the Green Bull battle matrix, the impact was unparalleled and they could trample the void of heaven and earth. At this time, the descendant of the Green Bull clan was the leader of this army. He volunteered to stay here and defend from behind. In the camp of the Demon Peacock realm in this battle for the Empty Realm, the strength of the Bull Demon was extremely powerful and dominant, and could be ranked within the top 5. With him shoring up the rear, Kong Zhan and Kong Xian would have no worries. Around the imperial flag, the great demonic army stationed there, and the Bull Demon looked at all the demons around and said, "The secret command of their royal highnesses is given here now to the great demon army who are guarding here. You will bear the most important task of this battle for the Empty Realm. At the time when the 3 great armies are going into war, we will cross the distance and launch an ambush by slaying the imperial flag of Emperor Li's realm, thus winning the battle for the Empty Realm." There were strange colors in the eyes of the demons, and they were silently amazed at their royal leaders, who had apparently learned the ways of the deceitful humans. Now, in the battle of the 3 armies, the alliance between the Emperor Li's realm and the Demon Peacock realm would ensure the destruction of Emperor Xia's city and taken their imperial flag. So, as long as they could successfully ambush Emperor Li's city and taken their imperial flag, the victory of the battle for the Empty Realm would be theirs. The following battle will be your battle of glory. Who wants to follow me? The Bull Demon said out loud, and suddenly all demon roared and sounded extremely excited. It was time for them to make their contributions to their masters of the Demon Peacock realm. To gain the control of the Empty Realm was indeed the most important task in the battle for the Empty Realm. The great army gathered, and the Bull Demon left some of the demons to guard the imperial flag, and then led most of the troops who were guarding this place to head toward the direction of Emperor Li's city. After they left, above the sky, a figure appeared among shadows. The look on his face was extremely sullen. He then turned into a beam of light, rushing toward the direction of Emperor Xia's city. This news must be reported immediately. Even though the people of the Demon Peacock realm would not necessarily able to take on the defense of Emperor Li's city, but at least they had to prepare for it. These beasts had betrayed the alliance, and were full of themselves, thinking that they had made a brilliant move. Was this to let Emperor Xia's city reap the benefit of it all? At this time, above Emperor Xia's city, the great army had blocked the sunlight, rendering the entire city in gloom, but there was also a suffocating pressure. The army from Emperor Li's realm and the Demon Peacock realm had descended above the firmament. Moreover, the 2 armies were mixed together, with many of the demonic army now integrated into the army of Emperor Li's realm, forming an unprecedented powerful force. Li Yao and Yuan Jin were right in the middle of the army. They were the main commanders of Emperor Li's realm. Kong Zhan, Kong Xian were in another central area. They were naturally the main commanders of the Demon Peacock realm. Above the sky, Kong Xian's eyes stared at Yi Futian below, who were behind Xia Qingyuan. Her eyes were extremely cold. These days, she had suffered enough humiliation from Yi Futian and that damn animal. Today they would be killed. Where was that damn beast? Kong Zhan said coldly, and just then did Kong Xian notice that Yi Futian's mount, the Black Wind Condor, was not present, and he was also not found among the army. The 2 great realms had joined forces to attack, and that stupid beast dared to be a no-show? Yuan Jin's eyes swept down below. He was observing the guardian army of Emperor Xia's city. Xia Qingyuan, the main commander, was present. So was Yi Futian, whose individual combat power was comparable to that of Xia Qingyuan's, as well as the two great legions of Tian and Dou, and many top cultivators from Emperor Xia's palace and the upper worlds. No one seemed to be missing except a few important people who were noticeably absent. Yu Sheng of the sacrificial battle of the flags and the black-winged condor seemed not to be on the battlefield, Yuan Jin said to Li Yao, who was next to him. Yu Sheng and the black-winged condors demonstrated great combat power in the sacrificial battle of the flags, which naturally attracted the attention of many, so they were listed by Yuan Jin as key targets. Even among the numerous cultivators of the army, he still discovered that Yu Sheng and the black-winged condors were absent. As for others, it may not be so obvious and not so easy to discover on account that there were just too many cultivators. At this time, there were several figures flashing toward them. They were the people who were responsible for the investigation of the battlefield. Bowing slightly, one said, "Sire, a few people disappeared before the battle, and those should be the trusted confidants of Yi Futian, those who were responsible for hunting outside the battlefield previously." When Li Yao and Yuan Jin heard this, they remembered those were indeed Yu Sheng and the others, and many of them demonstrated tremendous strength. They were the people of the lower worlds of the 9 states. The cultivator who inherited the ruin of Renhuang is also absent. Naturally, Li Yao knew who that was. He looked cold and indifferent, asking, "Is there anyone else not here?" "We have not discovered any at the moment," the messenger replied. "Xia Qingyuan and the leaders of Tian and Dou and other top principalities of Emperor Xia's realm are all here." "Senior brother, how many people were left guarding the imperial flag?" Li Yao asked Yuan Jin. "They needed at least a corps like Tian or Dou to break through a great army. Just those people from the 9 states, even if their personal strength was outstanding, are far from enough," Yuan Jin replied. Currently, his brows were furrowed. At such time when the great armies were about to battle, and Emperor Xia's city was in dire danger, their opponent had dispersed their power. Was it because they knew that they could not defend this, so they wanted to throw a wild card and capture their imperial flag first? This was a possibility. If this was the case, then there would not be much surprise. But if the other party was extremely confident, even if their forces were dispersed, the army of Emperor Xia's city could still resist their offense, then there may be outcomes that he had not considered. In the case of the former, one battle would determine the overall situation, but the latter, this possibility was very small. "Sire, make this battle a quick one," Yuan Jin said to Li Yao. Though the possibility was very small, but there was still an uneasiness deep in his heart, and he worried about the situations that he did not calculate. In this battle for the empty realm, Yi Futian was a wild card, and he had not taken him into consideration before, and he did not focus on investigating his background. Instead, it was Wang Chuan that he paid much attention to. In the end, neither Wang Chuan nor Li Heaven had participated in the battle for the empty realm, and for this he had relaxed a bit. Kong Xian, Emperor Li's realm, was always known for their trickery. In the last battle for the empty realm, they had won using such lowly method, and for this battle, Dali Dynasty had created a group of semi-sainted fighters, and does the Demon Peacock realm really knew how many of them had appeared in the battlefield? Xia Qingyuan looked up and said to Kong Xian, "Just for a grudge, you would rather lose the chance for the battle for the empty realm, is it worth it?" Kong Xian stared at Xia Qingyuan below. This most outstanding princess in the Emperor Xia's realm had been compared to her. In fact, Kong Xian also felt that it was a bit fast to get to the place they were now, and they may not have been as cautious, but all of this was caused by Yi Futian. All the demons of the Demon Peacock City hated him to the bones, and couldn't wait to tear him into pieces, hence the catalyst for making this alliance possible after several great battles had erupted. "Princess Kong Xian, don't listen to her nonsense. Our two armies are in a union because of the circumstances." After the imperial flag of Emperor Xia's realm had been captured, Emperor Li's city and the Demon Peacock City will fight each other fairly to decide the outcome, Li Yao said out loud, and Kong Xian sobered up her mind. All the demonic forces in the Demon Peacock realm were aggressive and dominant. What did she have to fear? "Kong Xian, if you were still bothered by the frivolous words of Yi Futian, I can ask my father the emperor to name him a title, and propose marriage to the Demon Peacock Emperor. How about it?" Xia Qingyuan continued. Her voice fell, and Kong Xian's eyes suddenly turned icy, and the uncertainty in heart a moment ago disappeared. For her to marry Yi Futian? Xia Qingyuan, there were many demonic beasts in our demonic realm who were interested in you, so it would be better for me to give them titles and have you marry into demon peacock realm. How about that? Kong Zhan responded indifferently. This was an insult to his sister, Kong Xian. For the daughter of the demon peacock emperor to marry Yi Futian? He was far from being qualified. If you don't like that, you may serve me instead. Kong Zhan's eyes showed a demon light as he continued. Xia Qingyuan swept a cold look to the sky above. Sire, it's time to make a move, Yuan Jin said to Li Yao, wanting to make a quick battle out of this without further delay. Li Yao nodded, but just then he suddenly saw Yi Futian levitated from below, holding the halberd of time and space, standing in midair, between the two armies, with the halberd of time and space pointed at the army in the void. If you want to start the war, which of you from Emperor Li's realm and the demon peacock realm dared to fight? And the long halberd pointed at the strong cultivators of both realms. However, the white-haired youth, who exuded ultimate arrogance, challenged them to fight. The great army of Emperor Xia's city looked at Yi Futian in midair. Naturally they recognized Yi Futian's personal strength and courage. It was just that he was unbridled and did whatever he wanted with total disregard to rules. If not for these flaws, Yi Futian's strong personal strength was indeed enough to take the responsibility as the princess's right-hand man. Kill him, Yuan Jin directly ordered, did not want to waste any more time. The two armies are at war, there was no need to abide by rules with the likes of Yi Futian. As Yuan Jin's voice fell, suddenly beams of destructive light slammed down from the sky, as if to chop and slice the void, and to dismember Yi Futian in the air. The light of destruction puffed out of the halberd of time and space, and the time and space around it seemed to have solidified. The beams of light of destruction continued forward, and the long halberd of Yi Futian struck forth, turning into endless light beams, colliding with the light of destruction in the void. Attack! Li Yao gave order to the army. Move! Kong Zhan and Kong Xian also gave the order at the same time, the mighty army pressing down from the sky. The war had officially began. Chapter 1064. Under the pressure of the two great imperial armies, the heaven and the earth were shrouded in gloom. At this time, Gongsun Zhong led the cultivators of the divine cloud valley towards the void. Under the pressure of the two great imperial armies, the heaven and the earth were shrouded in gloom. At this time, Gongsun Zhong led the cultivators of the divine cloud valley towards the void. On that day when Gongsun Zhong proposed to sacrifice Yi Futian, Xia Qingyuan had ordered that Divine Cloud Valley fight in the front. Therefore, at this time, the cultivators of Divine Cloud Valley, led by Gongsun Zhong, appeared in the forefront. At this time Gongsun Zhong's long gown was flying with the wind. His dark eyes were sharp and gazing above the sky. Not only that, but throughout his body he was full of an air of sharpness, as if his whole person was a weapon of the gods. Behind Gongsun Zhong, there was an incomparably brilliant divine furnace. Inside the divine furnace, golden light shot straight into the sky and surpassed the firmament, emanating radiant light that swallowed the rule's power between heaven and earth, refining the great path of the world. Gongsun Zhong has brought the heavenly refining furnace of Divine Cloud Valley to the battlefield. Many were shocked to behold this. Divine Cloud Valley was the premier armorer in Emperor Xia's realm, and the Gongsun clan was the founder and the master of Divine Cloud Valley. Over the years, an unknown number of the powerful divine weapons had been unearthed in the Divine Cloud Valley. In the Divine Cloud Valley, there were several remarkable divine implements, which could be considered the treasures of Divine Cloud Valley. One of them was the heavenly refining furnace currently behind Gongsun Zhong. The heavenly refining furnace, known for its ability to refine the great path of heaven and earth and integrate it into its own to bring forth unparalleled strength. Currently Gongsun Zhong had not yet entered into Saint Plane, but if one day he became a saint and still used this furnace in battle, he would really be able to truly refine the great path. All the cultivators of Emperor Xia's realm now looked at Gongsun Zhong. In the previous battles, Gongsun Zhong had never used this divine arm. Perhaps, Gong Sunzhong wanted to prove a point to Xia Qingyuan. The cultivators of Emperor Xia's realm all knew that although Yi Futian and Gong Sunzhong did not have a direct confrontation, between the two of them Xia Qingyuan clearly valued Yi Futian far more. At the moment, that figure hovered above the sky and was bathed in endless glory, but somehow gave out a sense of the desolation and sorrow of never looking back. Previously, there was Yi Futian responding with the halberd of time and space, and now Gong Sunzhong took the heavenly refining furnace to battle, as if it was an invisible competition. Divine Cloud Valley were all pushing their power to integrate into the heavenly refining furnace, with Gong Sunzhong as the center. The radiance released from the heavenly refining furnace shot straight into the sky. Inside the furnace, there were many divine spears that had now been refined, carrying the glory to rush to the void, into the great army of the other side. However, at the same time, above the sky there appeared a massive sword diagram that sheltered the sky. From it, an endless sword will be flowed out, shrouding heaven and earth. Hundreds of millions of swords light now surrounding the space, descending from the sky, colliding with the long spears inside the furnace as the two converged in the air. Suddenly above the sky, there formed a spectacular picture. A waterfall of galaxies seemed to be hanging between heaven and earth, dividing the world into two, and the atmosphere diffused from it was extremely terrifying. Dali Sword Mountain. Many people look at the swordsmen above the sky and knew that they were coming from the premier holy land of Swordway in Dali Dynasty. Gong Sunzhong's robe fluttered in the wind, and he stepped into the void. He went upward along with that silvery waterfall as all the power from the cultivators of Divine Cloud Valley was all integrated into the heavenly refining furnace and put into motion by Gong Sunzhong. At this instant a peerless divine spear appeared behind Gong Sunzhong, emitting endless glory and piercing through the waterfall, slaughtering toward the sky. Not only that, but the terrible heavenly refining furnace was continually refining the rule's power of the swordway that was falling from the sky. Gong Sunzhong of Divine Cloud Valley will fight for his majesty and Emperor Xia's realm. A voice was heard throughout the land and toward the sky. Gong Sunzhong reached out, and instantly that peerless divine spear fell into his palm. He darted and his speed surged, propelling him to shuttle through the silvery waterfall, carrying the supreme power to attack upward. The spear in his hand stabbed out with power that shocked all beings. The cultivators of Emperor Xia's realm were deeply moved, watching that gorgeous attack by the spear directly land in front of the swordsmen of Sword Mountain. Gong Sunzhong seemed to want to use this war to defend the dignity of Divine Cloud Valley. He was fighting for the Emperor and Emperor Xia's realm. Perhaps if it was before, he would have said that he was fighting for the princess. Troops of Tian and Dou, prepare to fight. Xia Qingyuan watched all these with calmness, immediately issuing the command and did not let Gong Sunzhong bear the pressure alone. Gong Sunzhong, though disheartened by her treatment of him, was the Gong Sunzhong that she wanted to see. The old valley master of Divine Cloud Valley had been a loyal follower of her father, the Emperor, for many years, and it was also the premier land of armory of the realm, which she naturally respected because Emperor Xia's realm needed such ally. But this did not mean that the descendants of the Gongsun clan could afford to have too many grand ideas. These unrealistic thoughts would only end up devouring them until they brought Divine Cloud Valley to its doom. So, if Gong Sunzhong still held fantasies towards her as he did before and forgot the true responsibilities that he should be shouldering, she would mind letting the Gongsun clan pick another leader for the future. The troops of Tian and Dou joined in the battle, and they went to the sky from both sides. Immediately following, all the top principalities from the upper worlds of Emperor Xia's realm also rushed from different directions to the void in attack. Even though their strength was at an extreme disadvantage, Princess Xia Qingyuan was still on the battlefield. Who would dare to desert? Aside from the outcome of the battle for the empty realm, if they ever dared to desert the Princess Xia Qingyuan on the battlefield to save their own skin, Emperor Xia would no doubt hold them responsible as dishonorable deserters, and they would probably never know how they would die in his hand. The two armies fought against each other, and a devastating atmosphere of incomparable horror erupted in an instant above the void, continually sending shock waves through it. Tianji led a group of people who were constantly surrounding Xia Qingyuan, defending her safety. When he saw the situation on the battlefield at that moment, he was becoming uneasy and said, "Princess, if it was not possible, we should give up the battle for the empty realm." The safety of the princess was more important than anything else. The control over the empty realm was only for 10 years. If they were defeated this time, they could still fight again in 10 years' time. "Watch it," Xia Qingyuan said to Tianji and appeared to be extremely calm. If Yi Futian had not told her, she would never have thought that Guy's motivation to pick a fight with Kong Xian was aimed to control the demons, and use the demonic beasts to initiate an alliance with Emperor Li's realm to manipulate the battle. The next step should be the time to close the net. Although Yi Futian was an extremely agitating bastard, but Xia Qingyuan absolutely recognized his strength and had absolute trust in him. Even until this moment, there was still no great abnormality in the battlefield. The cultivators of the demon realm were also participating in the war and fighting those who were against them. Violent roaring sounds continued booming, and under the great confrontation of the two armies, soon there was chaos in the battlefield. The battle between the cultivators of Divine Cloud Valley, who were led by Gong Sun Zhong, and the swordsmen from the Dali Sword Mountain separated the battlefield from the middle. Li Yao and Yuan Jin were on the left side of the battlefield, while Kong Zhan and Kong Xian were on the other side. As the commanders, they would not participate in the actual battle lightly, but observe the situation instead. Even though these beasts are fighting, they are not fighting very hard. Yuan Jin secretly transmitted his voice to Li Yao. Was this an attempt to let Emperor Li's realm and Emperor Xia's realm consume each other's strength? Continue to observe, if it is still the case. Remind Kong Zhan and Kong Xian, Li Yao replied with indifference. Not only did he become aware of it, but the cultivators of Emperor Li's realm who were participating in the battlefield also became aware of it. In the troops, the leader of the evil clan of Chao sent out a terrible palm of demonic wei. Its demonic force filled the sky and his body was shocked backward. Looking to Jialo Feng, who was not far from his side, he said, "I heard that none could compare to the speed of the Jialo royal clan, but I have yet to witness it. Since a descendant of the Jialo royal clan is here, how about a demonstration?" From Emperor Li's realm, the combative power of the evil clan of Chao is unparalleled. "I will hunt down and clean up the deserters," Jialo Feng responded. When they were talking, their bodies flickered as they were still fighting. At this time, Yi Futian was moving alone in the battlefield, and saw that the battlefield was growing gradually chaotic in the void, and a cold intent of slaughter flashed through his eyes. At this time, there seemed to be a flash of lightning crossing the sky and a cultivator appeared. He looked at the situation on the battlefield, showed some concerns, but did not speak in public. Instead he transmitted his voice to Li Yao and Yuan Jin, who were underneath. "His Royal Highness, Master Yuan, the Green Bull King of the Demon Realm has led his bull demons and defending troops of Demon Peacock City toward Emperor Li's city, intending to take our imperial flag. Retreat. In times such as this, they could not afford to stay and fight. How dare you ambush me, and now insult our Demon Peacock City? I will kill you." Another cultivator of the demonic royal clan roared, violently attacking, with many other demonic beasts joining the attack toward the cultivators of Emperor Li's realm, and in an instant, the battlefield was even more confused. Kong Xian and Kong Zhan were still unclear as to what was going on. Chapter 1065. Kong Zhan and Kong Xian looked somewhat puzzled at the battlefield. Wasn't the Demon Peacock City in alliance with Emperor Li's city to fight against the cultivators of Emperor Xia's city? Kong Zhan and Kong Xian looked somewhat puzzled at the battlefield. Wasn't the Demon Peacock City in alliance with Emperor Li's city to fight against the cultivators of Emperor Xia's city? Why had they suddenly started killing each other? Moreover, it was not only a battle matrix made up of one camp, because the cultivators from the Demon Peacock City and those from the Emperor Li's city were mixed in the matrix together. So, the moment the war erupted, fighting ensued. Those from Emperor Li's city, who were still unclear of the situation, reacted immediately when they heard Yuan Jin say that Emperor Li's city was ambushed by the Demon Peacock City. How could they not fight back? As for those from Demon Peacock City, seeing that battle had erupted and the cultivators of Emperor Li's city who were with them now fought against them, were they supposed to just sit and wait? Thus, the current situation was formed. Suddenly, a violent battle erupted in the midst of the mixed army, and the armies that were previously in alliance immediately attacked each other, and because of the close quarters, many people and demonic beasts were slayed in an instant, which led to more intense fighting. The cultivators of Emperor Xia's city were stunned and looked at the battlefield, stupefied. What was the situation? Weren't the two allied against them? The great army was coming toward them, and Princess Xia Qingyun had decided to defend the imperial flag at all cost, even to the death. Many of their cultivators were also willing to fight to the death. However, the battle did not last long before the other party began to withdraw and pull back line of the battle. They had not figured out what was going on before the other two armies started to fight one another in earnest. And the army of Emperor Xia's city was being put aside. The troops of Tian and Dou were well-seasoned armies and had never seen such an unusual situation. A great army in an alliance would switch sides in the middle and turn on one another? This was simply unheard of. Kong Zhan, Kong Xian, is this what you call an alliance? Li Yao reprimanded with a cold and severe voice. Let them stop first. Kong Zhan's eyes were sharp, and next to him, Kong Xian declared loudly and clearly, "Stop the fight." Right now, the situation was unclear, and the fighting had to stop first. Don't touch the cultivators of the demon realm. Those from Emperor Li's realm, kill without exceptions. At this time, Xia Qingyun gave the order, loud and clear. Yes, Princess. The army from Emperor Xia's city now received their order, and instantly a terrible atmosphere erupted, rushing toward the battlefield above. It seemed that the princess had a plan already, and seemed to have teamed up with the demon Peacock City, and in a surprising double twist, tricked Emperor Li's realm. Retreat. Yuan Jin's voice was very cold. Undoubtedly Xia Qingyuan's words were adding fuel to the fire. How could an already erupted battle be stopped at will? Whoever stopped first may lose their lives if the other kept on attacking. At this moment, the Yuan Jin began to doubt himself. He had actually failed to make an accurate calculation, and the most impossible outcome had occurred. The demon Peacock City actually joined forces with Emperor Xia's city. Yu Sheng and people of the 9 states, as well as the clan of the Green Bull King of Demon Peacock City both slaughtered toward Emperor Li's city, while the demons over there launched the ambush, and in addition of Xia Qingyuan's command, no one would believe that the Demon Peacock City and Emperor Xia's city did not premeditate together. Even if Kong Zhan and Kong Xian almost thought that they had really reached an agreement with Xia Qingyuan. However, who could tell them what had really happened? A loud and violent sound was heard above the firmament, and the battle matrix where the cultivators of the evil clan of Chao were had collapsed. Under the double attack between Jialo Feng and the cultivators of Emperor Xia's realm from both within and without, it was impossible for them to maintain the integrity of the battle matrix. The violent attack above the sky continued. The battle matrices of Emperor Li's city continued to collapse. Without the order they had previously, the great army instantly went into collapse and retreated. Li Yao, the clan of the Green Bull King who guarded the Demon Peacock City, is now on their way to attack the Emperor Li's city. Is this true or false? Kong Zhan darted and fought his way from the crowd, and stared at Li Yao and asked, I have been monitoring the movement within the Demon Peacock City, and saw it with my own eyes. The Green Bull said that it was by secret order of Kong Xian to ambush Emperor Li's city. How could it be false? And Demon Peacock City want to pretend as if you were ignorant about this? The cultivator who previously arrived in the void replied with indifference. The people of 9 states around Futian were also absent from the battlefield, presumably had joined forces in attacking our Emperor Li's city. This time, the Demon Peacock realm did not hesitate to sacrifice the reputation of Kong Xian and many demonic beasts and laid out such a trap. I'm truly astounded, Yuan Jin continued coldly, only that there was no damage done to Emperor Xia's realm world, and you have been willing to help defeat Emperor Li's realm. Do you think in the battle for the empty realm, Xia Qingyuan could be beaten by you? Upon hearing what Yuan Jin had to say, Kong Zhan and Kong Xian knew it was the truth. However, if the infighting was a coincidence, then what could be the explanation regarding the attack on Emperor Li's city by the bull demons, when they had never issued any orders for them to do so? Then, who gave the order to the bull demons? Or, there was no order at all, and the bull demons had transmitted a false order. The 9-color divine light sparkled on Kong Xian's body, and her body released an extreme chill. She had a sense that the situation was serious and indeed grievous. All clans from the demon peacock realm listen carefully my order. Immediately stop the fight and withdraw from the battlefield. Anyone who disobeys the order will be expelled from the clan. Kong Xian said coldly, and the 9-color divine light sparkled between heaven and earth. Her voice suggested great authority and threat. Her voice was heard throughout the void. All the demons felt the solemnness of her voice, and most of them began to retreat, but there were still a few cultivators of the demonic realm who were still battling violently, fighting alongside with the cultivators from Emperor Xia's realm. Among them, there were several great demons of royal clans. What really sent chills from her head to her toes was that the descendant of Jialo royal clan, Jialo Feng, was still in the midst of battle. The wings of Garuda bloomed with divine feathers. Many cultivators from Emperor Li's realm had died at his hands. Jialo! Kong Xian shouted loudly. Jialo Feng's eyes were brimming with a terrible golden light of chill. It seemed that he did not hear her voice and continued the killing. At the same time, Xia Qingyuan was personally leading the cultivators to enter the killing field. Behind her, the radiant light of a lotus bloomed. She stepped on golden lotuses, bathed in the most sacred glory, like a Jyotian goddess, dazzling to behold. Her hands pointed toward the battlefield in the void, and suddenly the sword of catastrophe appeared, tearing through the void, and a cultivator was killed instantly by the sword that pierced him in the throat. With her body as the center, a violent sword storm of catastrophes exploded, and the endless lotus light screen opened and closed. It began with 1, which turned to 2, 2 then became 3, and with 3 all things were possible, and the lotus was born into the way, and the way dissolved all light of catastrophe. The lotus petals flew out in swirls like the sharpest sword in the world. The sounds of bodily contact were heard as cultivators were being killed on the spot. Moreover, the cultivators who had been killed by Xia Qingyuan were those from Emperor Li's realm, maybe as a way to avenge Yi Futian. As for the demon peacock realm, Yi Futian had claimed that he could have taken the imperial flag of the demon emperor any time within the demon peacock city, and with the many demonic beasts controlled by Yi Futian, the demon peacock realm would not pose a threat to them. In another area of the battlefield, Yi Futian walked in the void and appeared alone in a direction. His face was cold with the halberd of time and space in his hand. There was a group of cultivators from Emperor Li's realm rushing toward him. Yi Futian glanced at them indifferently, his body darted and turned into a radiant light of nothingness. The tyrannical rules seemed to have blasted into nothingness, but gave out a dull sound nonetheless. However, the light did not slow down or stop, and the halberd of time and space thrust out. The group of cultivators felt that the space was solidified, and then it was torn. Their lives experienced a moment of stillness, and as their eyes revealed extreme fear, each one of them were shattered. In an instant, all were annihilated. Yi Futian did not stop at all, but continued to shuttle forward. A cultivator had just looked at him, when a sound was heard and his throat was pierced directly. Wherever the glory of space passed, all the cultivators from Emperor Li's realm perished, their bodies falling downward from the sky. Without the power of the battle matrix, there was no one who could challenge him. At this time, a cultivator whose body had emitted a half-sainted sense, and with extremely dominant breath on his body. He stepped into it and trampled upon the void, and merged with the great path. His body was like a divine implement, and he rushed toward Yi Futian. A palm print, akin to a golden millstone, crushed the void. The palm print was like the ring of an ancient tree, circle upon circle, smashing down to slaughter, intending on erasing everything. Yi Futian did not stop at all, but still struck with the halberd of time and space, and it pierced upon the palm print. A golden brilliance exploded forth, and the palm print was pulverized. The halberd of time and space went on to pierce through his body and shattered him entirely. Yi Futian in his current state could rely on his own power to overcome the likes of Wang Chuan, who was only a step away from being in the Saint Plane. Now with the halberd of time and space in his hand, how much stronger was he? Wang Chuan once said that under the divine path, Yi Futian stood alone. This was a confirmation of his strength and how strong he was. Under the glory of space, many cultivators perished. In the battlefield, in addition to the battle matrix, Yi Futian and Xia Qingyuan were the fastest cultivators from Emperor Xia's realm in number of kills, and they were also the two strongest fighters. Li Yao and Yuan Jin stood above the firmament, surrounded by many top cultivators, gazing coldly at the figure that came rushing toward them. Yi Futian, who wanted to break through the heavy army to fight his way through a bloody path and slaughter toward them, was simply reckless, extremely crazy, but at the same time also showed the absolutely confidence he had in his own ability. At this moment, Yi Futian felt a dangerous aura, and in the next moment, he saw the nine-colored divine light shot toward him with madness. A boundless and beautiful figure rushed in his direction, and endless divine light sprinkled down. It seemed to be able to destroy the way. Yi Futian struck with the long halberd and destroyed the divine light. In front of him, Kong Xian's attractive body floated in the air, gazing at him coldly. "Is this your doing?" Kong Xian looked very cold, and she had just thought of the reason why this alliance was done so fast. Because there was a group of demonic beasts around her that had clamored for today's battle, with Jialo Feng as its chief proponent. He had also requested to go to Emperor Li's city to seek an alliance. Before, Kong Xian did not think much about it. Under the circumstances that Yi Futian and that base animal, the black-winged condor, repeatedly humiliated her, it was completely expected that the cultivators of the demonic realm would want to kill Yi Futian in anger and destroy Emperor Xia's city. And demonic beasts were anxious in nature, wild and unbridled, so there was nothing appeared to be out of the ordinary. When Gong Sun Zhong came to relay the message, Jialo wanted to slay him immediately over the most minor disagreement, which was also consistent with his nature. Everything seemed so natural, as if that was the way it should be. Because of this, she did not detect any abnormalities, but now that she was thinking carefully, she realized that the demonic beasts who were still fighting were almost all of them who had gone to kill Yi Futian before. All these realizations made Kong Xian feel cold from head to toe. Chapter 1066. Kong Xian recalled how she was being provoked and insulted every day at the Demon Peacock City by both Yi Futian and the Black-Winged Condor, at the very first day of the Battle of Empty Realm. Kong Xian recalled how she was being provoked and insulted every day at the Demon Peacock City by both Yi Futian and the Black-Winged Condor, at the very first day of the Battle of Empty Realm. From the looks of things, all that he did was to set up for this very day. Beings as powerful as Jialo Feng refused to heed her orders, and the Bull Demon also ended up giving fake orders to take the army tasked with garrisoning Demon Peacock City, to cut down the imperial flag at Emperor Li's city. The implications were apparent. It all meant that Demon Peacock Emperor's realm had actually already lost in the Battle of Empty Realm from the very beginning. With the Bull Demon being controlled, it would have been easy for their enemies to cut down the imperial flag at Demon Peacock City, so easy that they would have been able to do it at any time. However, the Bull Demon did not end up doing so, or rather, Yi Futian was not in a hurry to kick them out of the competition. That was all because the forces of Demon Peacock Emperor's realm still had their use, from Yi Futian's perspective. That was what led to the battle happening right before their eyes. From the looks of things as they were at present, the siblings were made pawns from the very beginning, ever since they participated in the Battle of Empty Realm personally by Yi Futian. It was all so ironic, and one could have only guessed what was going through Kong Xian's mind at the moment. What transpired hurt her far more than any words of insult she had been served with. "I beg your forgiveness, Princess, for all my transgressions so far. All is fair in the Battle of Empty Realm, but I have no intentions of fighting to the death with your forces from Demon Peacock Emperor's realm. You're free to step out of the battlefield. When the Battle of Empty Realm is over, I'd let those mighty ones from Demon Peacock Emperor's realm back to your side," Yi Futian said as he apologized to Kong Xian. It seemed as if his target was never the Demon Peacock Emperor's realm to begin with. Kong Xian understood that while Yi Futian's words sounded brutal, but in actual, the forces of Demon Peacock Emperor's realm had long lost in the Battle of Empty Realm, and it was rather pointless for them to continue fighting. But then again, being played to such extent, their demonic beasts were controlled by Yi Futian, and they from Demon Peacock Emperor's realm being reduced to pawns, was still something she found incapable of stomaching. 9-color divine light shone and imperial might coursed about and emanated from the feathers of Kong Xian's voluptuous body. The light shone everywhere and many mighty ones throughout the battlefield turned their eyes in her direction. The divine feathers behind Kong Xian were spread and as she was basked in the divine light, she looked like some unparalleled goddess and emanated a feral grace, so much so that one look was all it would have taken to etch such beauty in the minds of those who saw it, making them succumb to her astonishing beauty. However, there was without doubt that the beauty in display was an extremely lethal one. It was especially so to Yi Futian as he was right there and then. He was able to sense that impending crisis looming over him. Kong Xian, the beloved daughter of the demon peacock emperor, who was of a status on par to Xia Qingyuan of Emperor Xia's realm. She came to the battlefield armed with items of the demon peacock emperor himself. 9 feathers from her father was infused in the divine feathers behind her. His powers were etched with them and those items were of incredibly power, as they were true items of the Renhuang. Furthermore, the feathers melded well with Kong Xian, fitting into her peacock feathers perfectly. An extremely huge shadow of the peacock appeared. Its wings spread, blocking out the sky, and even her enemies were unable to help but marvel at its beauty. However, there seemed to be eyes all over the feathers of that huge peacock. Kong Xian extended her hand and shrouded Yi Futian within. He felt, right there and then, as if he was being pinned down by the light of the peacock. Terrifying devouring powers threatened to consume everything around him, so much so that even the might of the great path was not to be spared as well. That devouring power seemed to be imbued with divine light out to destroy any power of rules as well, tearing apart all powers that Yi Futian was able to gather. The 9-color divine light pierced his body. Under Kong Xian's unreserved, all-out attacks, Yi Futian looked extremely puny and insignificant, as if he was about to be destroyed within that extreme beauty he was shrouded within. Yi Futian held on tight to the halberd of time and space in his hand. That time, however, the halberd of time and space, nothingness, which was ranked 3rd on the divine implements of the 9 states rankings, seemed to be completely overpowered by that of his enemy. But then again, given Kong Xian's status and might, it all seemed completely normal instead. Kong Xian's divine implement aside, even the divine armoring cauldron behind Gong Sunzhong from Divine Cloud Valley would have been on par with the halberd of time and space. The Lord of Divine Cloud Valley was the #1 armorer in all of Emperor Xia's realm after all. Light of rules coursed all over Yi Futian's body. While his physical body was indeed extremely formidable, he nonetheless needed to fortify defenses using rules. The 9-color divine light hit him. His physical body rattled as the rules were broken and the divine light blasted straight onto his body, shaking his insides tremendously. Kong Xian, who was not yet a saint, was nonetheless already able to threaten his physical body, which he had tempered with the medicinal baths. That meant that the attacks that Kong Xian unleashed onto him by borrowing the power of imperial feathers of the demon peacock emperor had considerably eclipsed that of the light of catastrophe of the great path. The devouring power that was out to devour the great path shrouded Yi Futian's body. Everything at their surroundings seemed to be flowing to where Kong Xian was standing. Yi Futian was also caught in that terrifying whirlpool and being gradually drawn to where Kong Xian was. He held tightly onto the halberd of time and space as his body burst with dazzling light. His body looked somewhat taller as the 7-star acupoints throughout his body was activated. The limits on his physical body were lifted and he became even far more powerful. Under such state, he felt as if he had touched the great path, feeling as if his physical body itself was an embodiment of the great path, holding unparalleled amounts of power. Boom! Terrifyingly devastating light of calamity of the storm was unleashed, sweeping everything around them. Sliver of storms of the light of calamity hit the peacock behind Kong Xian. Scenes of doomsday were seen around them and Kong Xian felt as if her spiritual will was being severely rattled. Harrowing might of the calamity struck directly into her mind. Yi Futian's body moved at the same time. He no longer attempted to resist the devouring power and chose to move with it instead, bringing out the highest speed he was able to achieve, in the form of the extreme shadow. He lashed out with the halberd in his hand and burst with devastating light of the calamity, fusing the light within the weapon. The devouring shadow of the peacock crumbled right there and then as the attack was brought about with extreme speed. Kong Xian, however, was hardly fazed when the peacock shadow was penetrated. Her slender hand clenched into a fist and 9-color divine light coursed on it, fusing with her fist before she threw it out straight before her. Her fist seemed to have been infused with the light of the demon peacock emperor, clashing head-on with the halberd of time and space. Yi Futian was thrown behind with a rumble while Kong Xian's arm felt rattled. Even with the power of the demon peacock emperor extending to protect her body, she nonetheless felt her arm going numb as she took on the attack from her opponent's weapon. It was a testament of Yi Futian's immense power. At the very next moment, Kong Xian saw her opponent drew a dazzling arc with his body and continued to launch straight for her. That attack seemed to have packed more punch than his last. Her beautiful wings flapped and she took one step forward, throwing out yet another punch. Peacock shadow was seen and thousands of dazzling feathers of 9 colors were unleashed, intending to bury Yi Futian right there and then. Yi Futian was thrown back yet again. He felt as if he had taken untold number of hits within that split second, yet he continued to draw a dazzling arc in the air and dived below. Kong Xian spread her wings and took flight, seeing how Yi Futian was growing increasingly powerful. Both figures continued to clash in midair with earth-shattering force emanating throughout their surroundings. Violet shockwaves were thrown about as the 9-color divine light shot to their surroundings. Any top-notch figures that even attempted to get close were surprisingly penetrated by the 9-color divine light and died on the spot. None of them were able to even withstand the aftershock brought by the battle between Kong Xian and Yi Futian. It was undoubtedly a testament of the immense power the pair of human and demonic beast was unleashing at each other. There were some who turned their attention at the battle between the two. Yi Futian seemed to have split himself into thousands of clones, as afterimages were seen throughout as if there was no end to it. The afterimages attacked furiously. Despite being shrouded by the divine light of the peacock, the looming power was entirely incapable of pinning Yi Futian down. At that very moment, thousands of extreme shadows merged into one being. Their surroundings howled as rules and the great path resonated. He lashed out with an attack of the halberd with earth-shattering might. A rumble was heard as Kong Xian's body was thrown behind violently. Her arms trembled and the light behind her seemed to have dimmed somewhat. Time and space seemed to have stopped moving with Yi Futian at the center. The 9-color divine light swooped by, shattering the rules of the great path and tearing the binding powers of space rules apart. Kong Xian's eyes were locked onto Yi Futian. She felt as if a terrifying tidal force was sweeping in her direction and it grew in power as it moved, as if it was a tsunami of rules out to destroy everything. Terrifying light of calamity hit her as the incoming force clashed with the 9-color divine light. Yi Futian took one step after another. The space shook as if it was about to shatter. He seemed to have fused with the space altogether and the great path resonated with him. A space afterimage came and went in a flash, streaking through space. Dazzling divine light crashed onto the incoming force, yet was all torn down by that one attack with the halberd. That was the most powerful attack from the halberd named as the weapon itself, nothingness. Everything under the heavens were reduced to nothing. A shadow of the peacock appeared in a dazzling manner right behind Kong Xian. Boundless 9-color light swooped by and threatened to drown Yi Futian in it. Kong Xian's demonic eyes glared at Yi Futian unflinchingly. Her arm was thrown right before her, with boundless divine light streaking through the air, heading for Yi Futian. The halberd of time and space was unleashed. At that moment, the 9-color divine light seemed to have been split opened, raging about as they gushed at Yi Futian's side, drowning the space around them. That power rendered Kong Xian's face ashen. Light of the divine feathers shrouded her body. One divine feathers after another fell and clashed with the incoming weapon. The power of the halberd of time and space seemed to have penetrated the protection of the divine feathers with a loud rumble, hitting squarely on Kong Xian's body. Her body was thrown behind as her wings were opened, with many cracks seen on them. Her stunning looks looked rather pale and blood was seen at the corner of her mouth. Kong Xian, Kong Zhan called. He was fighting Xia Qingyuan at the moment. He flashed and left the battlefield he was in, after seeing his sister's predicament. His eyes remained glaring coldly at Yi Futian as he headed towards Kong Xian. I lost. Kong Xian looked rather pale. She had lost to Yi Futian, the silver-haired cultivator who went to her city every day to provoke her. The forces of Demon Peacock Emperor's realm was reduced to becoming pawns of the enemy. They suffered an overwhelming loss at the Battle of Empty Realm, and at the moment, even she had been bested by someone else personally. They had practically lost in every front in that year's Battle of Empty Realm. Kong Xian was brimming with confidence when she came to command her forces personally in the Battle of Empty Realm, devoting herself to returning victorious with the forces of Demon Peacock Emperor's realm. None of them had expected to suffer such a brutal end. The forces of Demon Peacock Emperor's realm, I'd advise you to back away from the battlefield, Yi Futian was heard saying to Kong Xian while being high up in the air. He then turned his attention to the other battlefield. It would have been embarrassingly impotent of the mighty ones from Emperor Xia's realm if they were to remain incapable of getting the situation under control while the enemy was busy fighting themselves. When the army from Emperor Xia's realm joined the fight, they pulverized enemy formations within a short notice, killing many mighty ones from Emperor Li's realm. Furthermore, the forces from Emperor Li's realm had already been retreating without any intentions to fight any further. It could have been said that they have suffered a humiliating defeat. Li Yao, Yuan Jin and the others retreated far away with their army, preparing to regroup and defend Emperor Li's city. All hope was not lost if their imperial flag was still left standing. Chapter 1067. There was a huge army garrisoning Emperor Li's city. There was a huge army garrisoning Emperor Li's city. Li Yao and Yuan Jin led the army to assault Emperor Xia's city together with Demon Peacock City, so there was naturally a need to watch over their base, preventing it from being ambushed. The victor of the Battle of Empty Realm was decided by whose imperial flag was left standing last after all. As such, not only did they send people to keep an eye on things at Demon Peacock City, they had also began to watch for any movements of the army of Emperor Xia's city before they reached the battlefield at said city, checking to see if they were anyone leaving the city they were about to sack. All of that was done to prevent their imperial flag from being stolen. However, a terrifying pressure was sensed looming right outside Emperor Li's city, which was demonic in nature. The enemy is at our door. Might ones of Emperor Li's city, assemble and defend the imperial flag. A voice was heard loud and clear. One silhouette after another was seen flashing about and heading for the same direction. All of them appeared around the imperial flag and laid out their formations in an instant. Not only were there people left behind to defend the place, the forces that were left behind were also of formidable strength and versed in defensive matrices. All of them were of a batch of mighty ones nurtured specifically for the task, courtesy of the imperial advisor himself, so much so that their powers were very near in nature to each other, enabling them to easily attack and defend as a group. A cauldron after another flew in the sky and countless appeared surrounding the imperial flag in a heartbeat. They spun about in the air, emanating frightening saintly might. The cauldron matrix, a skill that was both offensive and defensive, enabling all of form the matrix to act as a single entity. The crafting of the divine implements that they were armed with were commissioned specifically and personally by the imperial advisor of the Dali dynasty for the Battle of Empty Realm. The imperial advisor had indeed poured his heart and soul into his job for the sake of the regime he served, which enabled him a prestigious position of serving only a single being while standing on top of tens of millions. The crown prince revered the imperial advisor as the teacher, so much so that he needed to perform proper gestures when seeing the imperial advisor and address the imperial advisor by the title. Dali and Demon Peacock Emperor's realm are now allied against Emperor Xia's realm. What do you all think of this? A young man of exceptional bearing said with a brimming voice in midair, addressing the people of Emperor Li's realm manning the matrix below. The alliance between both armies does not affect the fight between the two forces. When the imperial flag of Emperor Xia's city is taken down, it would then be our turn to fight each other. We shall take down the imperial flag of Emperor Li's city and bring an end to the Battle of Empty Realm, the bull demon elaborated in a loud, booming voice. He then roared and turned into a green kuei. Thunderstorms began to appear all of a sudden of raging magnitudes, as they fell from the heavens. Formless light was unleashed by the cauldrons surrounding the battle matrix, blocking the power of the thunderstorm, preventing it from doing any damage. Raging bull matrix, the bull demon said loudly. The mighty ones of the demon oxen took their formations and rumbling noises were heard throughout their surroundings. The entire Emperor Li's city was shrouded in terrifying thunderstorms. The demon oxen took their formations impeccably, with boundless shadow of the demon oxen appearing high up in the air. A towering demon ox king appeared amidst the storm vaguely, looking down terrifyingly as if it was an ox god. But do they really have to go this far? Are they really throwing their lives to break the matrix? How are they going to cut down the imperial flag even if they succeed then? Rumbling noises continued to be heard as one ox after another exploded in the clash. Their blood spilled all over the air. Their efforts rattled the defending cauldrons and the matrix shook violently. The divine light barrier enveloping the place began to tear. PFFTT. A puffing sound was heard. There were some within the matrix who were no longer able to withstand the shock of the charge and spitted blood, looking pale. Take down the matrix, the bull demon roared and continued to dive. Those from far away felt their minds rattled as they watched the devastating scene taking place. Is Demon Peacock Emperor's realm forces so adamant in taking down the imperial flag of Emperor Li's city? At that moment, far above Emperor Li's city, there were figures dropping from the devastating storm above, and one of them being a black-winged condor. The bird's eyes were cold as it stared at the battlefield. With the bird around, Futian's plans could be carried out seamlessly. Those who went there were naturally cultivators from the 9 states. Futian left the Sword Saint to be in charge of them, leading them to take down the imperial flag. Despite the mighty ones from both sides were engaging each other in an intense battle, but they nonetheless were alerted to the presence of Futian's people. The bull demon was long enthralled by Futian, so he naturally felt nothing about it. But then again, not all demonic beasts were subjected to Futian's control. Most of them were only following Bull Demon, who pretended to have received orders from Kong Xian, telling them to hit Emperor Li's city and cut down the imperial flag. The mighty ones from Emperor Li's city were extremely furious, wondering why were mighty ones from both Demon Peacock Emperor's realm and Emperor Xia's realm were there at the same time. We're here for the same goal, to take the imperial flag of Emperor Li's city, so we joined hands. The Sword Saint held onto the demonic blade and said, "All right," the bull demon answered. None of the other demonic beasts had anything else to say. They had no idea what was happening at Emperor Xia's city. Since they were there to cut down the imperial flag of Emperor Li's city anyway, so it made no difference whether they were cutting down someone or joining hands with someone. But of course, the demonic beasts did not let their guard down. They knew humans to be a shrewd bunch and they had watched out for themselves, to prevent from being ambushed. "Take the matrix down," the Sword Saint said. Demonic will shot up in a towering manner in that instant from his demonic blade, as he finished his sentence. The demonic will was then converted into dark flash of the blade, sweeping down from above at a cauldron. At the same time, Yusheng held onto the battle axe of judgment. He too cut down a cauldron with a roar. Yi Wuchen summoned thousands of sword wills, shooting up to the sky before diving downward again. Light of 9 words circled around Gu Donglu and transmuted into shadows of his own battle matrix, blasting the target below. There were also Bai Luli, Xianan, Tong He and many other mighty ones from the 9 states, attacking at the same time at the 2 battle matrices that were in a deadlock. The 2 battle matrices were of equal power and there was no way they could have taken additional attacks from above, unleashed by the mighty ones of the 9 states. The cauldrons exploded and shattered right there and then. With one whole corner crumbling, the humongous cauldrons sunk and cracks began to show on the barrier of light. Many mighty ones manning the battle matrix were subjected to indescribable pressure. A gale swept by and the black-winged condor's body grew exponentially in size, becoming a huge, overbearing demonic bird. It dived right there and then at a corner. Its dark golden claws flashed straight downward, tearing the space below and causing the battle matrix to rattle. Yusheng took the form of a devil and leapt from above, bringing down the battle-axe of judgment hard. All of those top-notch geniuses from the 9 states brought their best game to bear. The shadow of the ox god continued to roar as it bore on its opponent below. The cauldron exploded and reduced to bits with a rumble. Yet another crack appeared on the battle matrix, and many Emperor Li's realm defending mighty ones spitted blood. Kill them all? The bull demon let out a low rumble and dived below, messing up the battle matrix altogether. Yusheng and the others charged below as well, barging into the crowd. Yusheng, who held the battle-axe of judgment in his hands, swung wildly in his devil form. Every single strike ended up killing someone. The most powerful ones from Emperor Li's realm were sent to the battlefield at Emperor Xia's city. There was simply no one else capable of standing in Yusheng's way one-on-one. Other than Yusheng, the Sword Saint and Gu Donglu were both extremely formidable figures when it came to single combat. With the Black Wind Condor, Yi Wuchen, Huang Jioge and the others around, things seemed like tigers had charged into a herd of sheep. Blood kept being spilled everywhere. Yuan Jin left a batch of elites to guard the place, and yet, said elites were being wiped out in a bloodbath. Abandon your post, retreat, there were mighty ones from Emperor Li's realm shouting. They eventually despaired and they knew that there was no way they could have held their ground for long. If they were to stay any longer, they would have only died pointless deaths. Even if they were to be executed later, they would have had nothing else to say. Blood spilled everywhere. Yusheng brought his axe down again and yet another mighty one was split open. The army of Emperor Li's city was almost all eliminated, with only a handful being able to escape. The imperial flag swayed in the wind high up at Emperor Li's city. A great monster headed that way and roared, "Cut it down!" A sharp howl was heard and dark golden claws threw that monster out of the way. The condor zipped past like a bolt of lightning and landed its claws on the imperial flag of Emperor Li's city. Its proud eyes turned around to scan the demonic beasts from Demon Peacock Emperor's realm. It then said, "You're dismissed." With imperial flags of Emperor Li's city and Demon Peacock Emperor's city in their grasp, the Battle of Empty Realm was actually over. Chapter 1068. Emperor Li's city was in ruins with bodies strewn everywhere on the ground. Emperor Li's city was in ruins with bodies strewn everywhere on the ground. The demonic beasts watched with cold eyes at the Black Wind Condor below. There was naturally no problem to simply cut down the imperial flag of Emperor Li's city right there and then. It did not actually matter who was the one who took the flags. The key was the battle at Emperor Xia's city. That battle would have determined the outcome of the Battle of Empty Realm. If Emperor Xia's city were to fall and the city's imperial flag cut down, then the Demon Peacock Emperor's realm's forces would have emerged as the victor in that year's battle. However, if the ones at Emperor Xia's city were to be on the losing side, then they would have simply attacked the imperial flag of Demon Peacock City instead. "Go home and protect the imperial flag," the bull demon said, giving the order. The demonic beasts then took to the air and quickly disappeared from sight, leaving the battlefield of Emperor Li's city behind. With the demonic beasts gone, Ishaoshur appeared and countless vines lashed out, picking up the divine implements and storage rings below. The ones from the upper worlds sure are rich. So even the demonic beasts didn't bother picking up the divine implements, eh? That was probably only an oversight as they were caught in the heat of battle. However, things were different for him. Poverty had a way of stifling ambition after all. While the ones from the upper worlds might have been indifferent to the massive amounts of divine implements lying around, he could have bagged them and distributed them back at the Holy Ji Palace at the 9 states of the lower worlds. Anyone at and above the rank of an elder would have been able to hold a peace respectively, and that would have looked dashing. Oh my, that fatso! The people from the cottage were baffled at Ishaoshur's antics, but they did not say much. People from the 9 states of the lower worlds were indeed poor after all. Unlike those from top-notch forces at the upper worlds, common divine implements were a rare find for those from the 9 states. It was said that Empty Realm had quite a depository of great path fragments. They deemed it imperative to take a good look after the Battle of Empty Realm was over, as those were treasures capable of being made into divine implements after all, allowing saints to continue their training further, enhancing their understanding of the great path, strengthening their planes and enabling them to reach the pinnacle of the first plane. All of them from the 9 states were at present at upper-level Archmage plane. If they were to train further, it would have only been a matter of time before they reached the pinnacle of Archmage plane. What happened after that would have been of utmost importance, and that was to try to break into Saint Plane. Yu Xing turned his eyes far away, gazing with a cold expression, looking like a devil standing tall in the sky, as if he was waiting for something. Everyone else was waiting for something as well, just like he was. The Black Wind Condor landed above the imperial flag of Emperor Li's realm. Its claws rested on the flag itself, enabling it to snap it at any given moment. However, it did not do anything further. It stayed around waiting, just like what Yu Sheng and the others were doing. The mighty ones from Emperor Li's realm would have definitely retreated back to Emperor Li's city if they were to lose the battle over there. If they were to see what was happening to their city, one could have only imagined what would have been going on in their minds. With the forces from Emperor Li's city and Demon Peacock City fighting each other all of a sudden at Emperor Xia's city, the army of Emperor Xia's city took the advantage and was able to break Emperor Li's city's streak in a short period of time, killing a good number of mighty ones along the way. Demon Peacock City forces naturally knew what was going on. They were extremely enraged. Many of their own mighty ones were enthralled by the enemy and turned against them. Even though they were enraged, they had no way to vent their anger, as they simply could not have brought themselves to fight their own. Kong Xian's eyes remained cold at that moment, glaring at Yi Futian. She never expected herself to have actually lost to him. With that said, he deliberately hid his true abilities in all the battles that he fought with her before, baiting the forces from Demon Peacock Emperor's realm and enabling them to enthrall the demonic beasts. If she were to know that Yi Futian actually had what it would have taken to beat her, she would have never had let the demonic beasts pursue Yi Futian. What was more vexing was that, despite being able to control demonic beasts, Yi Futian nonetheless killed many mighty ones from Demon Peacock Emperor's realm, just so to not arouse her suspicions. Kong Zhan came to Kong Xian's side and said with an extremely cold expression, "Even if we from Demon Peacock Emperor's realm were to lose, we won't let things go your way still. Your Highness, our flag has been broken." A voice was heard from far away. One demonic beast after another came their way at blitzing speeds, holding the broken imperial flag of Demon Peacock Emperor's realm in their hands. At that very split second, the minds of the demonic beasts from Demon Peacock Emperor's realm sank to the very bottom. Their very last hope was shattered. Their imperial flag was no more. Demon Peacock Emperor's realm had been eliminated from the competition before everyone else. Kong Xian lifted her head, looking at the demonic beast coming from above. She was not even able to tell if those beasts had actually been enthralled ones, who had deliberately came to deliver the cut flag, just to announce the end of the forces from Demon Peacock Emperor's realm in that year's Battle of Empty Realm. Demon Peacock Emperor's realm had been eliminated. "You shall not affect things any further in the Battle of Empty Realm." Xia Qingyuan came to Yi Futian's side and announced to Kong Zhan and Kong Xian below. Kong Xian turned her eyes away from the imperial flag and they looked somewhat bloodshot. She then glared at both Yi Futian and Xia Qingyuan and said, "With the forces of Demon Peacock Emperor's realm eliminated from the competition, you shall release the demonic beasts of ours from your thrall and let them withdraw from the battlefield immediately." Her voice was extremely cold. They admitted defeat, but they could have not simply sat by and let the demonic beasts of Demon Peacock Emperor's realm to continue to serve Yi Futian as his pawns, being used as tools to kill those from Emperor Li's realm. "Very well." Yi Futian nodded. With Demon Peacock Emperor's realm forces eliminated, all demonic beasts are to leave the battlefield immediately. The beasts that he was controlling withdrew from the battlefield as soon as he made the announcement. It went the same with the other demonic beasts, who stood aside. "After the Battle of Empty Realm was over, I shall release them from my control," Yi Futian said to both Kong Zhan and Kong Xian. He then disappeared from where he stood, heading straight for the direction where the mighty ones from Emperor Li's realm retreated to. He had ever truly intended to fight against Demon Peacock Emperor's realm from the very beginning. Since the Battle of Empty Realm was a three-way battle, he could have used Demon Peacock Emperor's realm's forces to his advantages. But after the battle was over, it was not within reason for him to keep controlling those royal great monsters. The truly powerful figures from the demonic realm would have really looked for him at Emperor Xia's realm to settle the score otherwise. Follow him. Xia Qingyuan gave her order. There was no need for her to say more, as her army was already on their way to do so. There were really many twists and turns happening within that battle. The invading forces actually turned against each other outside their door, turning the tables into their favor. They were then only one step away from securing the victory of the Battle of Empty Realm. The army of Emperor Li's realm retreated en masse in the air. Li Yao looked extremely gloomy. He never expected things to have turned out like that. He thought that the Battle of Empty Realm was already theirs for the taking, yet that one battle previously resulted in them losing over half of their forces instead. They retreated in shambles and all of their previous might was completely broken. I was being too careless. Yuan Jin's words sounded rather regretful. He naturally knew that both Kong Xian and Kong Zhan had not betrayed their allies indeed. It was all due to Yi Futian's ability to control demonic beasts. None of them expected that Yi Futian's repeated provocations had been for that all along. He had been setting things up way back. While they were many mighty ones who were versed in controlling beasts, but it was extremely rare to see cultivators capable of putting demonic beasts under their control right there and then in a short span of time, and furthermore, it was complete subjugation. No one would have expected that. You were not at fault, brother. Despite how things turned out, Li Yao naturally had no intentions of blaming Yuan Jin for anything. Despite so, it was still due to my lacking abilities in doing simulations. I should have been able to take consideration of any scenarios, regardless of how rare they might have been otherwise. Yuan Jin sighed. To know one's own strength and the enemy's is the sure way to victory. It was indeed due to his lack of understanding of Yi Futian's ability and him never bothering to investigate Yi Futian further, that he failed to truly appraise Yi Futian's abilities. All of that led to what was happening at present. If the imperial flag still stands, then we shall be able to still fight from here on out. But if our imperial flag is taken, Yuan Jin did not finish his sentence. In the last battle 10 years ago, his elder brother in training had been able to secure a victory for them, due to having posed as the weakest side. If Yuan Jin were to return in failure, despite having an edge over the others in terms of powers, he had no idea how he would have been able to face his teacher and his elder brothers in training. Despite the army of Emperor Li's realm was retreating, they nonetheless maintained an uniformed speed at doing so. Any pursuing enemy who was capable of greater speeds would have been able to tear them apart, making them meet on chopping blocks otherwise. Having maintained at an uniformed speed meant that even if there were to be someone from the enemy capable of greater speed, said enemy would not have dared to approach them without good reasons. Those who are better at moving fast, come with me, Yi Futian said with a brimming at the very front of the pursuing army. Many turned to look at Xia Qingyuan, who then added, "His words are my orders." As soon as she gave the order, mighty ones who were versed at speed followed Yi Futian right away. The light of space sparkled. Yi Futian brought that batch of people heading for the flank of the Emperor Li's realm's forces, catching up to the enemy. Li Yao and Yuan Jin watched with grim expressions, and then gave the order. Speed up. They, too, were worried that Yi Futian would have been able to reach the imperial flag before they did. As such, there was also a part of the army that sped up as they headed forward. Two armies streaked in the skies and eventually reached Emperor Li's city. The imperial flag still billowed at the highest point of Emperor Li's city, yet there was a black-winged condor standing right on top of that flag, eyeing the incoming bunch with proud eyes. Yu Sheng and the others stood waiting before the imperial flag. There were many dead bodies of those from Emperor Li's realm on the ground. The Emperor Li's realm's forces at the very forefront halted as they saw what was going on, staring at their city while Li Yao looked completely ashen. Their imperial flag was taken, and their enemy was able to snap it at a moment's notice. Yi Futian, on the other hand, did not slow down. He streaked past the enemy right away, leading his group of mighty ones to regroup with Yu Sheng and the others. It robbed the enemy of the possibility to even think about barging straight through to retake their imperial flag. As such, things turned to look like Xia Qingyuan leading a batch of mighty ones pursuing from behind, while Yi Futian and his people waited at the forefront to catch the enemy in a pincer attack. Those from Emperor Xia's realm were relieved to see what they saw. They already won in the Battle of Empty Realm. All there was left to do was simply to cut the imperial flag down. Yi Futian cut the imperial down. Xiao Sheng, who was right behind Xia Qingyuan, spoke up. Yi Futian did not respond. He stepped forward, with Yu Sheng Yi Wuchen, the Sword Saint, Huang Jioga and others following right behind him, heading straight for the army of Emperor Li's realm. They looked extremely cold. That battle back at the Holy Ji Palace, the things that happened with the 9 pinnacle sages showing up, and how Saint Ji pulled the unexpected, were all flashing right before their eyes. They still had scores to settle. They had the flag and not cut it down. Your Highness, he is trying to doom us all. Yuan Jin's eyes turned cold, noting how brutal those before him were. Li Yao naturally understood what was going on, and he knew very well that it was because of him. So, this is about revenge then? If that is the case, then we still stand a chance? Yuan Jin's eyes looked incredibly sharp. He turned around to glance at Xia Qingyuan. If they were able to take Xia Qingyuan from the army, then they would have been able to force the enemy to let go. Kill, Yi Futian said with a cold voice. He zipped past like a bolt of golden lightning right after he finished saying that, charging into the enemy's army with the halberd of time and space in his hand. Kill them. Xia Qingyuan gave the order as well. She stepped forward onto golden lotuses. One lotus after another blossomed, which were all imbued with the way of catastrophe swordsmanship, turning into 3,000 swords which followed her finger, streaking forward. Many mighty ones had their throats pierced within an instant. Kill him, Li Yao said coldly as he stared at Yi Futian. Their defeat in that year's Battle of Empty Realm was brought by one single person, Yi Futian. They were all set up by Yi Futian. Many mighty ones charged forward, yet they saw Yi Futian shrugging off the attacks and charged straight into the army. Boom! Dazzling golden lights tore through space. One mighty one after another was blown to bits as the halberd was unleashed. Chapter 1069. Borrowing the Great Path for the Fight. Chapter 1069. Borrowing the Great Path for the Fight. Yi Futian charged into the midst of the army without a care. Yu Sheng and the others were right behind him. Yu Sheng's form was that of a devil at the moment, looking imposingly huge, and cutting up a bloody path with just one swing of his axe. He and Yi Futian were both practically invincible in terms of constitutional strength, enabling them to ignore power attacks from enemies, which was why they dared to just charge into the army. The Sword Saint, Gu Donglu, Yi Wuchen, Huang Jioga, Qin Zhuang and others right behind them unleashed their own attacks as well, cleaving up their own path. Li Yao and Yuan Jin scanned the battlefield and found themselves caught in a pincer attack. Be it Yi Futian on one side or Xia Qingyuan on the other, both of them were extremely powerful figures. After Yi Futian defeated Kong Xian, all of them knew that Yi Futian's powers were on par with that of Xia Qingyuan. They were near invincible below Saint Plane. It would have probably required Saint-level powers to kill them. Tiangong, protect His Highness, Yuan Jin said to an army of deadly warriors at his side. A group of semi-saint figures circled around Li Yao. Those people were top-notch figures under Saint Plane at Dali Dynasty. They were capable of cutting down enemies when in an advantage, and protect their supreme commander when in a disadvantage. It was clear at the moment that they were in a disadvantage, requiring them to prioritize defense. But then again, if they were to simply defend and do nothing else, then they were merely reduced to sitting ducks and it was only a matter of time before they were doomed. What is the intention of Yi Futian and Xia Qingyuan refusing to cut down the imperial flag? Their enemy intended to kill every last unit of Emperor Li's realm's forces, a bold, unrestrained attitude to take in such a war. DG, Yuan Jin called again. Another legion consisting of 81 persons gathered around him. All 81 of them wore pitch-black clothing, looking cold and unforgiving. The Tiangong and DG had separate roles. The warriors of Tiangong were suicide warriors bred specifically to serve Dali royalty and there was actually limited need for them. As such, they were comparatively less dangerous to deal with. The ones of the DG, on the other hand, were meant to perform the most perilous of missions. All of them painstakingly nurtured figures, and many of them began training at very young ages. It enabled them to possess adamant, indomitable will and very willing to give their all for Dali dynasty. All 81 of them took mystical formations at the moment. Yuan Jin stood above them at the rear and glimmered. A golden diagram seemed to have appeared behind him, which spun maniacally. It seemed to be a diagram of the Great Path, with the mystics of the universe, as well as the likes of 5 elements and yin and yang in operation. The light shining from the diagram was incredibly blinding, covering all 81 warriors. Beams of golden threads pierced into the brains of all 81 warriors, and they lit up brilliantly at the same time, as if they were all part of a single being without any individual differences. Terrifying aura burst from all 81 of them. Yuan Jin moved forward and walked in the midst of the 81. At that very moment, all of those warriors received spiritual will commands, being submitted completely under his control. Yuan Jin's eyes turned to look rather demonic and took a look at Xia Qingyuan in the battlefield. Things were such that they were about to suffer absolute defeat. If the enemy were to just cut down the flag right there and then, the Battle of Empty Realm would have been officially over. Yet, the cultivators from Emperor Xia's realm were not satisfied with simply cutting down the enemy's imperial flag. They wanted to annihilate every single one of their enemies instead. If that is what they intend to do so, then they shall pay the price. If we were to be able to take out Xia Qingyuan, then we would still stand a chance. A beam of cold light flashed. Yuan Jin moved forward and all 81 moved alongside him. Golden sparkle danced about them. They shone like glittering golden needles, piercing at the incoming army of Emperor Xia's realm. Look out! Xia Qingyuan looked up at where Yuan Jin was. She felt a tinge of danger from his direction. Swooping, high-pitched noises were heard and extremely dazzling golden light sparkled about in the air within a split second. The crisscrossing thread turned into a formless net, flying at extreme speeds. PFFD, a faint sound was heard from another direction. There were some people who had their parts of their bodies, their brows, their throats, or their chests, pierced. A very eerie scene was seen there. Yuan Jin's hands seemed to be taking control of countless threads. All 81 of those semi-saints were like his puppets. Furthermore, it seemed as if the cultivators who had their bodies pierced suffered the same fate. Their eyes showed intense fear. Dazzling golden light of devastation burst shortly after. Blood filled the air and all cultivators who had been pierced had their bodies torn apart by the countless threads. If Yi Futian were to see what happened in that battlefield, he would have realized that the abilities used by Yuan Jin resembled the ones used by the 9 back in the Sacred War of the 9 States. When all 9 of them joined hands, their powers were incredibly overbearing, so much so that he had to bring his imperial will to the fore. However, what Yuan Jin was pulling there was far more powerful than what the 9 had been pulling back then, as if what he did was orders of magnitude above them. Yuan Jin's hands continued to shudder. Countless golden threads shot out from the heavens at the army before him. Block his attack. A voice was heard shouting. The mighty ones in that battlefield discovered in that very instant how dangerous Yuan Jin had been. One legion cast defensive powers in the form of a dazzling barrier of light. But then, those threads seemed to be like needles. They were thin enough to slip through any openings or cracks, burrowing their way into the barrier of light. Countless threads shot inside and turned into a net. Yuan Jin pulled with both hands and the barrier was instantly shattered. Those threads continued on their way to slaughter. Untold numbers of mighty ones perished under the attacks of those threads within a heartbeat. Overwhelming through saintly might, many were able to sense saintly might within those very fine threads. All 81 of the enemy mighty ones moved forward at blitzing speeds, charging at the army. They were heading for Xia Qingyuan, who had been deemed near invincible in the battlefield. "Protect the princess," Tianji called loudly. The imperial advisor of Dali dynasty was versed in many peculiar mystical arts, including some heretic, evil ones. Yuan Jin was probably a student of said imperial advisor. That imperial advisor of Dali dynasty would have sent a student to fight in every one of Battle of Empty Realms. They were either tasked to lead the charge or lay out tactics behind the scenes. Blood spilled everywhere within the battlefield. Aura of massive magnitudes of order shot to the heavens with frightening might. Mighty ones from Divine Cloud Valley went into formation. Gongsun Zhong unleashed the Divine Armoring Cauldron. Powerful armoring powers burst, refining the powers of the great path around him. He charged forward and held a spear in his hand, streaking through the air like a bolt of lightning as he thrust forward. There seemed to be a beam of light piercing through space within that instant, as he moved in on Yuan Jin and the others. All the others unleashed their own attacks after seeing Gongsun Zhong making a move. All who appeared in the battlefield were veterans, so they deemed it impossible to just let the chance slip by, instead of simply shirking from enemy might. Yuan Jin watched with an unfazed expression. The golden diagram behind him seemed to be one of the great path. Boundless light shrouded the sky. Within that instant, all 81 mighty ones in his battle matrix unleashed overpowering saintly might, as he launched a palm attack forward. Every single one of the 81 blasted a diagram of the great path respectively. One diagram after another shut the space down as they spun in a frenzy. All 81 diagrams seemed to have formed a complete whole and resonated with the great path, as if they all formed a godly shield. Stampeding God Gongsun Zhong called as his spear was thrust. The shadow of the attack was towering and brought earth-shattering force onto the diagrams. The diagrams were rattled and light shot into the 81 mighty ones with the diagrams. All of them had devastating light coursing about their bodies, as if they had all bore the brunt of the attack at once. That was not the only attack. Many others came down on the diagram soon enough, but none had been able to destroy the shield. Countless reds shot out from within the many diagrams and climbed onto Gongsun Zhong's spear, wrapping it all upon within mere moments, and continuing to move at he himself. The powers devouring everything burst and the divine armoring cauldron moved forward, intending to cook up all the countless threads about. One figure after another shot forth. The 81 mighty ones quickly surrounded Gongsun Zhong. Golden images coursing about their bodies pulsed with destructive light, shooting at Gongsun Zhong at the same time. Gongsun Zhong scanned his surroundings and saw countless golden threads shot to the air. The power of the divine armoring cauldron was unleashed at full force. The glittering light from within consumed most of the threads, yet there were still some left that slithered through and headed towards him. Gongsun Zhong swung the spear in his hand about. Boundless shadow of the spear appeared in his surroundings. High-pitched noises were heard as attacks were launched. At the same time, Xinyuan Ao and many other mighty ones from Emperor Xia's realm burst with their own attacks. The Xinyuan sword spirit shot through and hit one of the 81. Explosions were heard as that one man's defenses crumbled, as if he had been shattered. Gu Mu, Xiao Sheng and others headed their way and launched attacks as well. One figure after another was rattled so badly that there spitted blood. The first batch of casualties quickly resulted as the army of Emperor Xia's realm surrounded Yuan Jin's battle matrix. Xia Qingyuan, how about we just end this battle right here, right now? Yuan Jin's eyes pierced the skies and gazed at Xia Qingyuan at the rear. After fighting for a while, he felt that taking down Xia Qingyuan would have proven too difficult. The army of Emperor Xia's realm gave him no openings which he could have harmed Xia Qingyuan at all. Xia Qingyuan took one look at the battlefield at Yi Futian's side. She had not been doing all that much in that year's battle of Empty Realm. In truth, that held true for most from the Emperor Xia's city. Yi Futian had been the one laying down the plans in the battle and enabled Emperor Xia's realm to bag the victory of the battle. As such, regardless of what Yi Futian intended to do, she saw no reason to go against him. Kill, a cold word was uttered by Xia Qingyuan, refusing to stop fighting. Yuan Jin was unfazed hearing her answer. The cold winds of the battlefield blew on him. His robe and black hair billowed. "We shall fight for Dali dynasty." A line was heard from Yuan Jin, and he sounded very solemn. "We shall fight for Dali dynasty." All 81 mighty ones of the Legion of Diji said with determined eyes, as if they had been completely controlled by Yuan Jin. In that very instant, the diagram behind Yuan Jin turned even more brilliant. Aura within the bodies of the 81 warriors coursed towards him. Countless golden threads shot to the air and pierced his body. Waves of terrifying power were infused into Yuan Jin's body. Divine might emanated from Yuan Jin. The weather in the skies changed. The light of calamity of the divine path was there. Yuan Jin lifted his head to look at the sky. His hair continued to billow as he uttered a single line, "I request to borrow the great path for the fights." Chapter 1070. Divine calamity from the heavens penetrated through Yuan Jin's body. He was standing tall in the air as his long hair billowed, looking like a god. Divine calamity from the heavens penetrated through Yuan Jin's body. He was standing tall in the air as his long hair billowed, looking like a god. It seemed as if the powers within all 81 mighty ones became his. The divine calamity was actually incapable of shaking him at all, making him actually far more powerful than how Dozhan had been, when Dozhan had been enduring divine calamity. His body seemed to have grown huge and saintly might emanated from his body. It was the true might of the saints, and he had broken through the bondage of rules using divine might, breaking through his semi-saint status into that of a saint. "Brother." Li Yao's expression was a shaken one as he turned around to look at Yuan Jin. While they had indeed lost in that year's battle of Empty Realm, but Li Yao never blamed Yuan Jin for it. Despite Yuan Jin being tasked as the advisor by his side, but he was ultimately the supreme commander nonetheless, making it his responsibility as well. No one would have expected Yi Futian to have beast-taming abilities of ferocious magnitude, forcefully taking control of the demonic beasts and laid a trap out for them. They had indeed lost, and there was nothing more to say about it. Even the likes of Crown Prince had to pay utmost respect to the imperial advisor in the Dali dynasty. Yuan Jin was a student of the imperial advisor, and Li Yao called him a brother in training, affording Yuan Jin the same level of respect as to his teacher. Among the mighty ones participating in the Battle of Empty Realm that year, Li Yao, the Crown Prince of Dali dynasty, was not the most powerful. The most powerful one was Yuan Jin. And at that moment, Yuan Jin was borrowing the might of divine path and breaking into sainthood. It was done using secret arts to break through the limits of the great path. As such, Yuan Jin had become a false saint and had to suffer the punishment, barring him from ever being able to become a saint in this lifetime. It would not have mattered with the suicidal warriors, as they were ultimate meant to die in battle anyway. They would not have been called such to begin with otherwise. But Yuan Jin was a student of the imperial advisor of Dali dynasty and had a great future ahead of him. Becoming a saint would have only been the beginning. He might have even been able to make it to the second or third steps, even ultimately becoming a holiness of nirvana, the last plane in Saint Plane. However, what happened right there and then meant that Yuan Jin's hopes of becoming a saint had effectively been shattered. Cold, murderous intent was seen in Li Yao's eyes as he looked at Yi Futian, who was coming for him. If Yi Futian would have simply cut down their imperial flag and end the Battle of Empty Realm right there and then, Yuan Jin would not have had to suffer all of that. Yuan Jin, a person of supreme talents who was there as Li Yao's advisor, had forever been barred from becoming a saint, all due to Yi Futian. Worse still, their army was being slaughtered as Yuan Jin was suffering such a fate. Yi Futian and his party continued to press forward, heading straight for Li Yao. However, Yi Futian caught sight of the battlefield where Yuan Jin was in as well. Light of catastrophe of the great path advent on Yuan Jin, and there was no way Yi Futian would have missed it. True might of the divine path burst from Yuan Jin's body in that battlefield. His body grew to imposing size and his arms were outstretched. The diagram behind him seemed to have become that of the great path and shooting light of the great path. Boundless golden threads shot out from Yuan Jin's arms and streaked through the air, shrouding everywhere in his immediate vicinity. "Retreat," Xia Qingyuan shouted. Yuan Jin's training had already been at the pinnacle level below Saint Plane. At the moment, he was borrowing the power of 81 semi-saints in his control and broke through the bondage of the great path, using the path's power and became a false saint. However, there was no doubt that the power he unleashed was that of the saint. Whooshing, stabbing sounds continued to be heard. One figure after another from Emperor Xia's realm was pierced through by the golden light and be torn to shreds. A rain of blood was falling in the sky. When the difference in power reached certain levels, It became something that could not have been compensated through sheer numbers, especially when the battlefield had turned chaotic at that moment. The mighty ones from Emperor Xia's realm were unable to fight using top-notch matrices, and the entire battlefield was already in shambles. Kill them all? A cold line was uttered by Li Yao. The mighty ones from Emperor Li's realm were all in a frenzy from all that killing. They continued to slaughter their way through the enemy without a care. A gale blew and Yuan Jin's body flashed. Powerful might of the saints appeared, and a huge golden mirage streaked by at speeds that could not have been tracked using the naked eye. Divine fires erupted in their surroundings, and the divine armoring cauldron burst with dazzling light. Golden spears burst from within, and Gongsun Zhong took one of the spears and lashed out, tearing everything before him. Yet, Yuan Jin's imposing golden form simply whacked forward with his hand. A golden diagram was pinning down and spinning in a frenzy, swallowing the spears and headed straight for the weapon Gongsun Zhong wielded. The golden diagram seemed to have been halted for a brief moment with a rumble, before continuing to press forward, tearing everything apart. Countless threads shot from within the diagram. Gongsun Zhong backed away hastily, and the divine armoring cauldron burst forward, clashing straight into the diagram. Doom! The divine armoring cauldron was sent flying and ramming straight onto Gongsun Zhong's body, causing him to spit blood as his body was sent flying far away. Yuan Jin did not bother with him, and his imposing form continued to press forward, paying no heed to the enemy forces before him. He simply swatted about with his hand at any incoming mighty ones, spewing golden threads with the power of light of calamity, penetrating through their bodies within an instant. He then only needed to pull with his hand to spray the place with rains of blood. Conventional figures at the pinnacle of Sage Plane was utterly incapable of doing anything against the might of the divine path. Calamity of the great path rained on him from above, but it seemed as if Yuan Jin was feeling nothing when he was bathed in the light of calamity of the divine path, and simply continued pressing forward. The power between the saints and sages was at a fundamental level. Despite many having become top-notch sages and had even emerged into being semi-saints, but they were still incapable of withstanding true saint powers. Yuan Jin continued to press forward and burst his way through the enemy forces, heading straight for Xia Qingyuan. Protect the princess. Tianji's stout frame was seen standing before Xia Qingyuan. Many mighty ones around them showed up to guard Xia Qingyuan. While all of them knew that the princess was extremely formidable, so much so that she was probably more powerful than they were, but it was nonetheless their duty to protect Xia Qingyuan. Make way. Xia Qingyuan uttered coldly. It took her only one step to streak through the crowd before her and made it to the forefront. The simple clothing that Xia Qingyuan wore and her hair billowed in the wind, making her look dashing. Despite having worn men's clothing, she was nonetheless strikingly beautiful. Princess, Tianji shouted. Heed my orders. All of you, stand down. Extremely cold and imposing intent emanated from her body, which was seemingly infused with the might of Renhuang and looking imposing. Many were stunned by the bearing she exuded and backed away unconsciously. Not even the likes of Tianji dared to continue standing in Xia Qingyuan's way in that moment. The princess was determined to fight, and no one was to stand in her way. It also seemed that only the princess would have been able to fight that incoming monster. Xia Qingyuan's lotus life spirit burst forth, making her look even more dazzling. A golden lotus hovered from within her body, emanating towering aurora as she merged with her life spirit into a single entity. The world in that instant was covered in aurora as the lotus bloomed, looking peaceful and tranquil. The calamity of the great path showering down from the heavens that made the place looking like doomsday seemed to have been blown away by the dazzling scene before them. The lotus gave birth to the path's powers, while said powers gave birth to calamities, and calamities in turn gave birth to the sword. Will of calamity swordsmanship burst from the beautiful petals of the lotuses in the surroundings. The light of calamity of the great path above coursed about, seemingly conjuring boundless swords heading straight for Yuan Jin. The space seemed to have been placed in lockdown, making the place stifling with the pressure all over it. Yuan Jin halted in his steps. His ethereal form coursed with boundless golden threads that blocked out the sky, which then shot for Xia Qingyuan. In that moment, two powerful forces clashed with each other in the air. The top-notch sages in the surrounding battlefield all felt that stifling pressure and burst with their own powers to resist it. High-pitched noises were heard as the two powers battled in the air. Xia Qingyuan was bathed in the light of divine renhuang. She brought all of her powers to bear without reservations at that moment, fighting a saint before her as a sage. You borrowed powers to become a saint, and you're nothing more than a fake. Xia Qingyuan's eyes glared at Yuan Jin before her. Her finger pointed below her and countless lotuses rose to the air spinning. 3,000 calamity swords burst into a rain of swords. What was even more terrifying was that the sword at her fingertip burst and tore through space. The power of a false saint is nonetheless the power of a saint. If you want to fight, then I shall oblige, Xia Qingyu. Yuan Jin swatted with his hand and diagram of divine path spun forward. Countless golden threads flew about and clashed with the frightening rain of swords. The sword clashed onto the diagram with a loud boom. However, Xia Qingyuan commanded more than one sword with her fingertip. One sword after another shot through the air. One sword seemed more powerful than the one that came before, growing to such massive powers that it tore the space around them apart. However, one beam of diagram after another shot from Yuan Jin's palm, shining onto the diagram before him and continued to stack. When the diagram was cracked being penetrated by the swords, it was instantly patched up. The diagram of the Great Path continued to spin like a ring of stars and even grew in size. Yuan Jin lifted his hand and swatted again. With a loud bang, devastating light burst from the diagram, blowing up the lotuses around until the force reached Xia Qingyuan, who was being shielded by the petals of the golden lotus, before the ferocious attack was stopped. Even so, Xia Qingyuan continued to be forced backwards. Her barrier of swords had been punched through and she looked rather pale. Blood was seen at the corner of her mouth. Yuan Jin had already been halfway into Saint Plane and was an edge of pinnacle below Saint Plane, before he forced himself into becoming a false saint. Princess? Many mighty ones stepped forward. They were only at the edge of the battlefield when they sensed the formless killing intent from within. There were some who, before even entering the battlefield, got penetrated by the frightening powers within, spewing blood right there and then. They did not even have the right to fight in that battle. Get the battle matrix ready, Tianji shouted. You may have been of supreme talents, but you still have never touched the Great Path. Yuan Jin continued to press forward in Xia Qingyuan's direction, bringing even more terrifying aura to bear. Dazzling light of the golden lotus burst and bringing rebirth to the boundless lotuses in their surroundings. The petals blossomed and the sword will shot to the skies. Her eyes remained adamant as she set her sight forward. Ha! Yuan Jin felt something at that very moment, turning around to find a figure streaking through the air and extreme speeds. Yi Futian. Good time for you to show up indeed. There were mighty ones from Emperor Li's realm intending to stop Yi Futian in his tracks, but that silhouette did not even slow down. Blood splashed in his tracks and he did not even brandish his halberd of time and space yet. High-pitched noises were heard, seemingly like sonic booms. Countless mirages seemed to have been conjured as he moved like a bolt of lightning, shooting straight for Yuan Jin. Towering might filled the place as if their surroundings were about to come apart, before Yi Futian came before him. He clenched his weapon tight and terrifying aura of space-time grinding to a halt around him. Yuan Jin swung his hands about seeing Yi Futian coming for him. The light of the Great Path burst and tore through the air, shrouding Yi Futian altogether. The stopped space-time seemed to have been broken through as the light of Great Path shot through Yi Futian's defenses, drowning him within an instant and piercing into his body. You have a death wish? Yuan Jin uttered a single line and with a single flick of his wrist, the power that punched into Yi Futian's body burst. However, he sensed the veins within Yi Futian's body roared in that instant. Despite bringing the might of Great Path to bear, it was insufficient to just destroy his body right there and then. It seemed that there was a holy power within that felt like green and filled with life. Yuan Jin frowned and pulled with his hand, but he was still unable to destroy Yi Futian's physical body. In that very instant, Yi Futian came right before Yuan Jin and brought the halberd down with the might of the heavens. Their surroundings seemed to have been stifled and the great path seemed to be about to shatter. Boom! A loud boom was heard. Many fixed their eyes forward in shock. Yi Futian's halberd was lodged into Yuan Jin's body. One attack was all it had taken to cause Yuan Jin's body to rupture. His body was sent flying and his internal organs seemed to have been torn apart. He lifted his head to look at Yi Futian, who was before him, while spitting blood. Chapter 1071. Yuan Jin raised his head and looked at Yi Futian. Could a body of flesh and blood bore his attack of the great path? Yuan Jin raised his head and looked at Yi Futian. Could a body of flesh and blood bore his attack of the great path? Even true characters of the Saint Plane could not completely ignore it. The void was silent with nary a sound, and the vast army had actually stopped the fighting at this moment, and looked at Yi Futian with shock. How glorious was that strike with the halberd, the saint of war! How strong! The army of Emperor Xia's realm felt the impact in their hearts, and Yi Futian's strike had wounded Yuan Jin, who wanted to borrow the great path to enter Saint Plane. Of course, at this moment, Yi Futian himself was not faring much better. Although his body of flesh and blood could be considered near invincible under the Saint Plane, but it was not sanctified after all, and was just a hair from it. Even if it was in an extreme state, but it still could not really disregard the attack from the pseudo-sainted Yuan Jin. The burning pain inside his body, along with a burning sensation of tearing, the ancient tree released the green life force from the life palace, repairing his wounded body. But even so, it was still difficult to fully recover. This was the attack of the way. He looked a little pale, and there was blood oozing out from the corners of his mouth. However, the halberd of time and space still tightly clutched in his hands, and a torrential sensation moved about. Many of the rules between the heaven and the earth poured into the body at the same time. There was a horrible light of catastrophe blooming. With his body as the center, a storm of destruction appeared and ravaged between heaven and earth. Xia Qingyuan stepped forward, her clothing fluttered in the wind, the lotus between heaven and earth were endless and gave forth the way, turned into the sword. The way gave birth to one, and two turned to two, to three, until countless swords were born and turned into one. Her sword of catastrophe intended to become a way of the sword. Yuan Jin's eyes swept toward the two of them. His hands stretched out, and the diagram of the great path appeared, rotating endlessly, gave forth to endless destructive golden silk threads that penetrated the void, puffing out the radiance of the great path, slaying toward the sword of catastrophe of Xia Qingyuan, and also toward the body of Yi Futian. Today, by borrow the way to enter the Saint Plane, it would make it impossible for him to enter the divine path for the rest of his life. He refused to believe that they would be defeated like this. Yi Futian felt the power that was everywhere. Inside the life palace, a rustling sound continued, as if everything between heaven and earth was imprinted in his mind. He could feel the rule's power that was everywhere between heaven and earth, and he could even perceive that power of the way. He held the halberd of time and space tightly in his hands. And from the halberd of time and space exuded a sense of the way. At this moment, his heart comprehended and realized what was the way. The great path was invisible yet gave birth to heaven and earth. The great path was ruthless, yet regulated the sun and the moon. The great path was unknown, and yet it nurtured all things. Man ruled heaven and the earth, but the rule of the way was nature. Those who cultivated, embraced the heavens and the earth, and integrate the spiritual will into all things between the heavens and the earth, to comprehend the rule's power in the natural world, and integrate with them as one, thus turned into rules. Then what was the way? Man was the way. This was a real metamorphosis. To rule all things between the heavens and the earth was the way. The way existed in all movements. At this moment, Yi Futian seemed to have entered into a curious state. The halberd of time and space puffed out awesome glory, akin to threads of authority of the way. The storm of the light of catastrophe that surrounded Yi Futian became even stronger and collided with the endless radiance that shot out from Yuan Jin. Xia Qingyuan continued to move forward, her delicate and slender hands slammed forward, and folds of the way of the sword of catastrophe merged into Huangting Fist Will, with force that could shock gods and demons alike, madly attacking the defensive diagram that was in front of Yuan Jin. At the same time, Yi Futian's body flew in rotation as if one with the great path, fast to the limit. A horrible force gathered inside his body. The ruinous silk threads released from Yuan Jin chased him for slaughter, but seemed having trouble to keep up with his flying silhouette. Finally, when the power of the great force climbed to its epitome, Yi Futian casted a look at Yuan Jin, who was below the sky, and with this one look that seemed to penetrate the void, his body then disappeared directly from where he was, and in the next moment he reappeared before Yuan Jin. His speed was even faster than before, regardless of the spatial distance. The halberd of time and space pierced straight forward, tearing the space and broken the great path, slammed right on that defensive diagram. Boom! A crisp sound was heard, and cracks began to appear on the diagram of the great path. At the same time, the sword wills from Xia Qingyuan passed through, and with a ray of destructive brilliance, the golden pattern was directly collapses and pulverized. Xia Qingyuan and Yi Futian's attack did not stop, and they continued moving forward. The two engaged in close-quarter combat, and Xia Qingyuan had also descended in front of Yuan Jin. Her delicate hands stretched forward, and the endless light of the lotus that was between heaven and earth coursed upon her body, turning into the way of the sword, pulverized everything, stabbing toward Yuan Jin, and pierced through him. A slight sound was heard, and the halberd of time and space also pierced through the body of Yuan Jin. At this moment, they were surrounded by dead silence, and Yuan Jin looked up at the two with a look of surprise, and then a sad smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. I didn't expect to lose the battle today, even by borrowing the power of Wei. Yuan Jin let out a sigh. The next moment, there was an explosion of endless brilliance from his body, shot toward Yi Futian and Xia Qingyuan, who were in front of him. Terrifying brilliance flowed about upon both of their bodies. With Yi Futian as the center, the space seemed to have become static. His body moved toward the side, with one hand around Xia Qingyuan's body, and they both disappeared from where they stood and appeared in the next moment in another position. Is the princess all right? The two faced each other. Yi Futian released his arm and looked at Xia Qingyuan. When he spoke, there was blood seeping from the corner of his mouth. Terrible power still flowed inside his body, constantly repairing the wounds. I'm fine. Xia Qingyuan looked at him, her beautiful face was slightly pale, and a trace of blood likewise seeped out of her mouth. Yi Futian nodded lightly, and turned to look at Yuan Jin, and saw that Yuan Jin's was gradually becoming elusive. Under the devastating attack of the two of them, it was finally too hard for him to continue holding on. The elusive figure looked at Yi Futian and Xia Qingyuan. In addition of Xia Qingyuan, Emperor Xia's realm had appeared another such fearful figure. If time was given for him to develop fully and fight alongside Xia Qingyuan, it would be the end for Emperor Li's realm. Sire, get rid of him. A voice came into Li Yao's mind. It was Yuan Jin's last words to him. In the next moment, his body turned into nothingness and disappeared between heaven and earth. Li Yao's heart trembled violently and watched Yuan Jin's body disappearing, but there was nothing he could do. Yuan Jin, his senior brother, tried to borrow the way to enter the Saint Plain but was defeated, killed by Yi Futian and Xia Qingyuan. Raising his head, Li Yao looked at Yi Futian and Xia Qingyuan, and his eyes were full of murderous intentions. The last message left by his senior brother was for him to kill Yi Futian. He never thought that a person that he had offended in the lower worlds of the 9 states would directly influence the outcome of the battle for the empty realm, even caused the countless casualties suffered by the great army of Emperor Li's realm, even more miserable than the state Emperor Xia's realm was in the last battle. The disciple of the imperial advisor of Dali, his senior brother, was also executed on the spot. The world was silent and without sound. All the cultivators from Emperor Li's realm felt a sense of sorrow. They did not expect that they would have been defeated so badly. It is a contempt to capture the imperial flag without slaying it, the ultimate contempt. The ultimate goal was to annihilate all of them. The people of Emperor Xia's realm, likewise, trembled in their hearts. They looked at the two figures standing side by side. Yi Futian with his hair white as snow and the incomparably beautiful princess, Xia Qingyuan. The two of them stood together at this moment did not make anyone felt out of place, as if it was a matter of fact that they ought to have been so harmonious. Back in the days when Prince Li Yao from Emperor Li's realm came to propose marriage, many cultivators in Emperor Xia's realm felt they had been insulted. But this time, for unknown reason, they felt that these two should be standing together like this. Even the legions of Tian and Dou, belonging directly to Emperor Xia himself, now revealed a sense of respect and sincere admiration, reversing all the doubts and displeasures of the past. At this time, they finally understood that everything that Yi Futian had done before was for setting the trap. Almost single-handedly, he succeeded in winning the battle for the empty realm for Emperor Xia's realm. To the numerous voices of dissent, he had never defended himself, merely facing them with silence. All the previous doubts and displeasures now formed a glaring contrast with this moment, making them feel shamed and regretful, and that complex emotions naturally gave way to the sense of awe. Obviously, if Xia Qingyuan now named Yi Futian as deputy, there would almost be no more doubts, and they would all agree. Gong Sunzhong glanced at Yi Futian, who was next to Xia Qingyuan, and he was speechless. Even though he had also shown his own brilliance in the battlefield, he still could not overcome what Yi Futian had done. Many people now remembered the words of Wang Chuan at Lihen Heaven. Under the Saint Planet, Yi Futian was in his own company. Among the crowd, someone looked very badly, Xiao Sheng. He looked at the crowd around him, and when he saw the eyes of Yi Futian, he knew that most of the people in Emperor Xia's realm had been conquered by Yi Futian. What did this mean? It meant that in the future he would be able to enter Emperor Xia's palace with dignity, standing next to Xia Qingyuan and assisting her, and no one would question him. And that was what the family expected of him, the position that he wanted. But after this battle, it was getting farther and farther away from him, and seemed to be held in the hands of Yi Futian. Even though he had also performed well in this battle, compared to what Yi Futian had done, it was still no comparison. But Yi Futian did not think so much. He had never thought of vying for positions, nor did he think of assisting Xia Qingyuan. All of this was just the imagination of Xiao Sheng himself. At this time, his eyes swept coldly at Li Yao, and then as if he had felt something, he directed his eyes into the distance, and felt an immense divine authority coming toward them. The saints of the three imperial realms had arrived. Yi Futian realized that when Yuan Jin borrowed the power of the Wei, thus causing changes in the heavens and the earth, even though they were not on the battlefield, the cultivators of the Saint Plain in the distance could still perceive it, and they had rushed over here. He also understood that it was all over. The cultivators of the Saint Plain from Emperor Li's realm took one look at the battlefield and knew exactly what had happened. They stared at the black-winged condor, their eyes cold and indifferent. One person said, "This battle for the empty realm, Emperor Li's realm lost." Without the slaying of the imperial flag, he had announced the defeat of Emperor Li's realm. It was clear that he would not allow the battle to continue. Yi Futian glanced at the other, then drifted toward at the little condor in the distance and spit out a word, "Slay." The sharp claws of the little condor clamped down, and the imperial flag that was fluttering above Emperor Li's city was suddenly cut off and fell from the sky. The once 10-year fight for the empty realm between Emperor Xia's realm, Emperor Li's realm, and the Demon Peacock realm had officially come to an end. Emperor Xia's realm snatched the victory and won the control over the empty realm for the next 10 years. Chapter 1072. In the distance, many people were coming over this way. After the end of the battle for the empty realm, naturally they no longer had any worries or concerns. In the distance, many people were coming over this way. After the end of the battle for the empty realm, naturally they no longer had any worries or concerns. Seeing the situation in the battlefield, many were stunned. Emperor Xia's realm was least favored, but was able to capture victory in this battle for the empty realm. The person who was instrumental in the victory of this battle was someone no one had heard of before, Yi Futian. Of course, he was someone of the Sage Plain and from Emperor Xia's realm, so it was quite normal that he was an unknown. It was just that they did not know whose disciple he was. The cultivators of the Demon Peacock realm had also arrived. Kong Zhan and Kong Xian were also present. They looked somewhat cold and unfeeling. Emperor Xia's realm could win was because of the strategy that had been used on them. Although Emperor Li's realm suffered the most, but the Demon Peacock realm did not fare much better. They had been used by Futian and it was still difficult to accept. The cultivators of the three great realms now gathered amongst themselves, and the sacred generals of Tian and Dou both came to Xia Qingyuan's side and asked, "How is the princess' injury?" They clearly saw that Xia Qingyuan was wounded. No matter, since the battle of the Empty Realm was won by Emperor Xia's realm, get ready to take over the Empty Realm. Xia Qingyuan said. In the next 10 years, the resources of the Empty Realm would be taken over by them. Anyone enter into the Empty Realm would need to pay the spiritual resources to Emperor Xia's realm. Yes, the sacred general of Tian nodded. After the takeover, the princess could then hand out the rewards. After he finished speaking, he looked at a cultivator of the Saint Plane from Emperor Li's realm and said, "Ready to turn over the control." The War of the Empty Realm was the agreement reached by all three parties. The three imperial realms had to agree to the outcome, because if they refused, then there could only be War of the Imperial Realms. Before there was not enough preparation, it was obvious that none of the three parties was willing to risk an all-out War of the Imperial Realms. There was too much at stake. Wait. A voice of indifference was heard, and the eyes of the people turned to see that Kong Xian was staring at Futian. She didn't say anything, but Futian understood what she meant nonetheless. With his gaze refocused, Futian conveyed his thoughts to the demonic beasts that he controlled, and suddenly they all came forward, including Jialo Feng, Bull Demon and some other royal elites of the demonic realm. Seeing that so many demonic beasts were being controlled, Kong Xian's face was quite steely. Not just her, but all the characters of the Saint Plane within the Demon Peacock realm looked at Futian with extreme unfriendliness. Futian looked at the many demons, his eyes were enchanted, and the spiritual will infiltrated into their minds, erasing all the marks he had planted before, and the spiritual willpower ceased to control the will of these demonic beasts. The bodies of the demonic beasts, such as Jialo Feng, trembled. It was then that they seemed to realize what had happened to them before. A violent thought of murder exploded from Jialo Feng, and he madly rushed toward Futian. Not only him, but many other demonic beasts also did the same. "You don't think this is shameful enough?" Kong Xian scolded them. She stared at Futian. "Are there any other that you have controlled to lurk around us? I have heard that all the previous battles for the Empty Realm were full of trickeries and intrigues, and nothing was not permissible. I possessed the kind of ability that could be used to capture the battle for the Empty Realm. It was understandable that I would use it. If I had offended the princess, I ask for your indulgence in the matter." Futian looked at her and continued, "As for other demonic beasts, Princess Kong Xian may feel free to ask others of the demonic saint level to investigate. Judging from the demonic saint plane, it should be no trouble to detect." Kong Xian stared at Futian and said coldly, "I hope we do not meet again." The leader of a defeated army, "What gives you the right to be proud?" A cold voice came out, and Kong Xian turned her attention to look at the speaker, and saw a pair of equally stunning eyes. The person who spoke was none other than her equal, Princess Xia Qingyuan of Emperor Xia's realm. The two crossed their gazes in the air. With the same coldness, there seemed to be an invisible current flowing. Seeing this exchange, many were faintly excited because the most unfortunate thing in this battle was that the two beautiful princesses did not engage in direct confrontation. Otherwise, it would definitely have been the most beautiful scenery. "Go." Kong Xian did not say anything further after all, just turned and left. Xia Qingyuan wasn't wrong. She was indeed the leader of a defeated army. Even if it was lost in Futian's unusual strategy, but defeat was defeat, there was no excuses. What's more, in that battle with Futian alone, she had also lost to him. After returning, she shall cultivate harder, evoking the divine path, and wash away the shame of the battle for the Empty Realm. The cultivators of the Demon Peacock realm quickly disappeared and left the battlefield. "We will order the evacuation of our people. You can take over yourselves." From the camp of Emperor Li's realm, there was someone who responded coldly, and they left by levitation. The sacred general of Tian looked at the other and nodded in agreement. After that, he looked at Xia Qingyuan and asked, "Would the princess also wish to come along?" "Well, let's take a look-see." Xia Qingyuan nodded, and suddenly the army of Emperor Xia's realm gathered together, and then left the city in a mighty force. After the people of Emperor Xia's realm had left, the cultivators from Emperor Li's realm looked at Li Yao and said, "Sire, shall we return to the palace? Send messenger back to report the news of the battle for the empty realm. I still have unfinished business here. As to the imperial advisor, I will go back and ask for forgiveness," he replied. There were countless cultivators who perished in this battle, but even as top geniuses who died in the battlefield, as the Prince of Dali, there was nothing for him to explain. However, Yuan Jin was a great disciple of the imperial advisor of Dali, his own master. Even though the imperial advisor would not blame him, he still had the obligation to ask for forgiveness. After all, he was the leader of the battle. But before that, he still had something he wanted to do. The news of this war soon spread in the empty realm, and many were quite surprised by the victory of Emperor Xia's realm, and there were many cultivators who inquired about Yi Futian. This figure who came from nowhere, defeated Kong Xian, and together with Xia Qingyuan, joined forces and slain Yuan Jin, the disciple of the imperial advisor of Dali, gained control the demonic beasts, and played Emperor Li's realm and Demon Peacock realm one against the other. He captured the imperial flag and yet did not slay it, so he could destroy most of the elites from Emperor Li's realm, and Yuan Jin had died fighting. Such a brilliant record helped to quickly spread the name of Yi Futian all over the empty realm. In the future, this could be the character who could sway Emperor Xia's realm. Xia Qingyuan came to the land of a deserted canyon in the empty realm. At this time, the group had traveled by air, and there were people continuously broke off and left from the sky below. They were all cultivators from Emperor Li's realm who began retreating from this point. Yi Futian looked down at below, and heard continuous sounds of explosions. The mountain ridge bursted, and a strong and dominant matrix below was being destroyed. It was the matrix set up by the cultivators of Emperor Li's realm, and they were destroying it now. "What are they doing?" Yi Futian asked curiously, and he felt that the space rules between the heavens and the earth at this place was so thick that he could even felt traces of the Great Path. As they continued forward, he was shocked to discover that the mountains were of a golden color, nursing a terrible sense of space within, just like a sacred mountain in the space. "Did you feel the atmosphere here?" asked Xia Qingyuan. "Yes," Yi Futian nodded. "The rumor has it that the empty realm was a complete piece of the heaven path that fell from the universe after the collapse of the heaven path, thus forming the empty realm. Therefore, the endless area of the empty realm has a strong atmosphere of space. If you look down from the firmament, you will see that the entire empty realm is surrounded by the great path of space, so cultivators who are specializing in the power of space attributes will come here to cultivate." Xia Qingyuan explained further to Yi Futian, "Here seems to be the center of the empty realm. The layout of the Great Path matrix was to absorb the intention of the Great Path in the empty realm, thus condensed into the Great Path fragments, that is, the sacred spirit stones. But in the next 10 years we are in control of the empty realm, so that was why Emperor Li's realm destroyed the matrix. Not only that, there are some places in the empty realm that are similar to this place, but this is the core area of the empty realm. Look at the mountains below, they have all turned into a sacred mountains of space. Cultivating in place like this, you will get twice the result with half the effort." The sacred General Tian who were in front also piped up. His palms grabbed toward below the sky, and a powerful suction suddenly came from the palms of his hand, and a radiant glow came toward his palm. The next moment, a crystal appeared in the palm of the hand of the sacred general of Tian, which seemed to be formless and intangible. "Princess," the sacred general of Tian handed it to Xia Qingyuan, and she took it in her hand. There was a flow of air current in her hand, which was absorbed into her body, and suddenly the light of space covered the body of Xia Qingyuan. She stepped forward and was able to directly cross the void. The Great Path fragments can be used for enlightenment. If you are already at the saint level, you can also use it to battle directly, or for use to refine magic weaponry or divine implements. Xia Qingyuan, who was in front, turned back and explained to Yi Futian, so every 10 years, the battle for the empty realm was always very intense. "Princess, I will lead people to set up now," the sacred general of Tian said to Xia Qingyuan, and then immediate left. They still have much to do, taking over the resources of the empty realm, controlling the entrance of the empty realm. For the cultivation of the people of the upper worlds, they were blessed, Dozhan said with a sigh. It is said that in ancient times, before the collapse of the heaven path, the sense of the great path was everywhere, and it was the most prosperous times for the cultivators. After the heaven path collapsed, the difficulty of cultivation multiplied and evolved to today. In the so-called lower worlds, the great path no longer existed. Even in the upper worlds, resources were scarce, and competition for them happened often. Only some legendary places was said to have still preserved partial heaven path, Xia Qingyuan explained. Dozhan and the others nodded. The people of the 9 states, after cultivating at the peak, needed to rely on the power of the sacred war for enlightenment. The level of difficulty was extreme. Xia Qingyuan faced all people and announced, "For everyone who participated in the battle of the empty realm, you may cultivate in the empty realm, and all the great path fragments collected in the coming year will be distributed equally among all the people who had participated in the war." Many thanks to the princess. Everyone bowed to convey their gratitude. 1 year in the empty realm could produce a large sum of great path fragments. The princess indeed did not mistreat them, but it was a pity for those who died in battle. "Yi Futian, in the battle for the empty realm, you were indispensable. What kind of reward do you wish?" Xia Qingyuan asked Yi Futian. "You may ask for anything. It's enough to be the same as everyone else," Yi Futian replied very calmly, and many showed a look of total surprise, but then they admired Yi Futian even more. Considering the future of Yi Futian, it was true that there was no need for him to fight for the gain at the moment. "You laid down the trap and slay the imperial flag of the demon peacock realm, and led the people of the 9 states to capture the flag of Emperor Li's realm. I will ask Divine Cloud Valley to forge a divine implement suitable for those who fought from the 9 states. As for you, I will ask my father, the Emperor, to bestow on you a place of cultivation in the upper worlds or to renovate the place where you cultivate right now. In addition, you will have the privilege to enter and leave the palace at will." When the matrix had been arranged, all the great path fragments that were unearthed in the next 7 days would belong to you. All the cultivators who participated in the battle would share equally 1 year's worth of the great path, but Yi Futian alone would receive 7 days' worth of the great path fragments unearthed in the entire empty realm. This would be an unimaginable number. However, no one disagreed. He had helped Emperor Xia's realm to gain the control of the empty realm for the next 10 years, and was only rewarded 7 days. This was how it should be. Chapter 1073. For the next little while, all the cultivators of Emperor Xia's realm were cultivating at and around this mountain range. For the next little while, all the cultivators of Emperor Xia's realm were cultivating at and around this mountain range. 7 days later, Yi Futian was sitting cross-legged upon a sacred mountain of space rule power that was full to overflowing with the brilliant light of space rule power. He had closed his eyes in order to enhance his perception, and many lines of will flowed around his body. They were without form and without shadow, and seemed difficult to even ascertain. In the previous battle he had already nearly touched the edge of the path. He had touched the great path rules in the truest sense. He knew that he had already entered the mysterious area between the Sage Plane and the Saint Plane. Of course, there was still a good bit of distance between his level and Wang Chuan's level. In the life palace within Yi Futian's body there was a constant rustling sound. The world tree life spirit was swaying. It was actually able to absorb will from space elements, making rays of the light of space rule power appear within his life palace. This kind of mysterious plane made Yi Futian's heart tremble slightly. He knew that his own life spirit was extraordinary. As he increased in level, his life spirit would reveal special powers to him from time to time. When he had first set out on the path of cultivation, his original life spirit was able to harmoniously cooperate with and visualize the attainment of other life spirits, as well as absorb the 10,000 different spirits and auras of heaven and earth. No matter what kind of element the spirit or aura belonged to, he could sense it and then integrate it into his cultivation. Now he understood will a little bit better and he could sense its presence. This life spirit could absorb it and integrate it into itself, letting it seep bit by bit into his life palace and at the same time washing his body. The descendants of truly top-notch cultivators of great powers life spirits could integrate their life spirits into their ancestors' paths of cultivation. What path was his world tree life spirit integrated into? And whose path was it? What kind of people had his ancestors been? The light of space rule power flowed over the surface of his body. He opened his eyes and saw that not far in front of him there was a delicate figure walking towards him. There was a bright smile on her devastatingly beautiful face that was enough to make one's heart beat faster. Her autumn-like eyes were as gentle as water. She looked at him with a grin. "Goddess Yao Shi," Yi Futian called out. These days, the great army of Emperor Xia's realm was cultivating in this area. Even though the vast majority of them weren't cultivating any abilities related to space elements, they could still feel the presence of will everywhere. This still made them able to easily grasp the power of the Great Path. Yao Shi came over to where Yi Futian was seated and said, "I see will flowing all over you, Lord Yi. Have you already made to the Demi-Saint plane?" "I'm still a step away. I just barely touched the edge of it," said Yi Futian with a shake of his head. "You have such outstanding talent, Lord Yi, and yet you are still so modest." There was a warm smile in Yao Shi's eyes all along, and her face was clear and bright. The flow of will over his body clearly meant that he had already entered the demi-saint level. How could he have just barely touched the edge of it? He was clearly being modest. Seeing Yao Shi's reaction, Yi Futian knew that she did not believe him. But his own cultivation was special. He naturally could not explain it easily, so he just smiled and shook his head. A misunderstanding was just a misunderstanding after all. In reality, even though he had not made it to the demi-saint plane yet, there would be very few people who could resist him in terms of combatability below the saint plane. Yao Shi stared at him when she saw his expression. His hair was white as snow, and his features were as sharp as a knife. He had an incredibly handsome face. In the Battle of Empty Realm, he had won the victory for Emperor Xia's realm nearly by his own strength. And he had kept everyone else in the dark, only letting Xia Qingyuan in on his plans. In the final Battle of Empty Realm, he and Xia Qingyuan had fought side by side and slain Yuan Jin as he entered the Saint Plane. His halberd had pierced through the sky. It was absolutely outstanding. She kept looking at him as if she were being drawn to him. Her smile became even more mysterious. Yi Futian saw Yao Shi's smile. It was beautiful enough to make one's heart say. Her bright and clear eyes seemed to not hide her admiration of him at all, which was even more confusing. Of course, Yi Futian had never lacked for beautiful and talented women by his side. Jieyu, Glass Saint and Xia Qingyuan all were. But in terms of charm, none of them could surpass Yao Shi. It was a charm that could leave one flustered. It could be inadvertently revealed with every frown and smile of hers. You truly fulfill every fantasy about what a woman might wish her partner to be, Lord Yi, said Yao Shi with a smile. She didn't wait for Yi Futian for an answer, but said, "Am I disturbing your cultivation?" "It's no problem." Yi Futian shook his head. When she heard his answer, Yao Shi's smile grew even brighter. He had said that it was no problem, not "you are not disturbing me." Did that mean that she was in fact disturbing him? But Yao Shi did not care. She stretched lazily, suddenly outlining her perfect figure. Anyone without a firm will probably would have had trouble restraining themselves. "You should attend to your cultivation, Lord Yi, no need to worry about me." Yao Shi lay down on a rock behind him lazily, a mischievous light shining in her eyes. Yi Futian smiled ruefully. It would probably be impossible for anyone to avoid having their heart moved by a woman like this. With her lying there, how could anyone cultivate peacefully? In the past, Yi Futian might have flirted with her for a while, until it would not be clear who was teasing who. But now he no longer had the same youthful vigor as before. He did not know if it was because of Jieyu, or because he had matured. At that moment a figure came towards them through the sky. Her face was so beautiful it was almost shocking. It was Xia Qingyuan. She looked at Yi Futian and Yao Shi lying behind him and smiled coldly. "Greetings, princess," called Yao Shi with a smile. Xia Qingyuan glanced at her and said coldly, There is something I must discuss with Yi Futian. Why don't you go on down? Yao Shi looked at Xia Qingyun with a slight smile, then bowed and said, Yes, Princess. On saying this she looked back at Yi Futian and grinned. I must come another day to question you about the way of cultivation, Lord Yi. Why would you need to come and question him about the way of cultivation of Yao Tai Divine Palace? Said Xia Qingyun coldly. If you have nothing of importance to say, then do not disturb his cultivation. Yao Shi looked at Xia Qingyun, then smiled and rose up into the air to leave, her robes fluttering in the wind. It was truly a stunning sight. I like him, came her voice from far away. This was naturally said to upset Xia Qingyun. Xia Qingyun narrowed her eyes slightly. She was clearly a bit unhappy. Then she looked at Yi Futian and said, I see that you like to enjoy yourself while you cultivate. Yi Futian looked up at Xia Qingyun and asked, Is it Yao Shi that you have a problem with, or with me, Princess? At the beginning you entered the imperial palace because of the news of your wife. This was not polite in the least, answered Xia Qingyun. She had finally spoken her opinion on the matter out loud. She had called Yi Futian to the upper realms to cultivate because she had been informed of the news about his wife. He had come to the imperial palace to seek an audience with her and had made things difficult for her maid. This made her extremely unhappy, and even after seeing her his attitude was still cold. But not long after that, he had spoken with Yao Shi on very intimate terms at the Shao clan banquet. Yi Futian naturally understood what Xia Qingyun meant. Was she accusing him of something? There is no need to trouble yourself over my private affairs, Yi Futian answered. Xia Qingyun stared at him coldly for a moment. Then she waved her hand and suddenly there was a storage ring floating in front of Yi Futian. She said, These are the fragments of the great path that were unearthed over these past 7 days. On saying this, she waved her hand again and turned, flying back up into the air to leave. Yi Futian walked directly through the storage ring, and his spiritual willpower entered into it. When he saw the number of fragments of the great path, he trembled inwardly. Had they really unearthed this many fragments of the great path over the past 7 days? If so, then it was quite obvious how many they must have unearthed over 10 years. Of course, saint-level figures using fragments of the great path to enhance their perception must have consumed a great number of said fragments as well. Without the aid of fragments of the great path, one could only use one's own power to gradually perceive the great path bit by bit. A figure suddenly appeared in front of Yi Futian. It was actually Saint Xia. He had seen Princess Xia Qingyun coming over earlier, and thus he had come as well. At that moment his long beard blew in the wind. He pointed at Yi Futian, his disappointment at Yi Futian's lack of progress and impatience for him to improve clear on his face. Can't you be a little warmer to the princess? Saint Xia really wanted to beat him, the scoundrel. They had built a difficult friendship upon the field of battle, and then Yi Futian had actually said to the princess that she shouldn't worry about his private affairs? That was simply, did he not know how many people dreamed night and day of reaching the level of relationship he had with Princess Xia Qingyun? And perhaps they could get even closer? He probably didn't know how many people hated him and burned with jealousy towards him. The princess had given him fragments of the great path, and had even personally given them to him. She had been so good to him, and he had basically shooed her away. Yi Futian smiled ruefully and shook his head when he saw Saint Xia's expression. This old guy really still spent his days worrying about him. Elder, haven't I said it before? The princess is a good person, but her temper is ugly, said Yi Futian. Could it be that you actually still want to change the princess? Asked Saint Xia incredulously. Yi Futian looked at him. He thought that if Xia Qingyun was not so cold, and if she wore women's clothing, she would definitely be much more charming. Perhaps her charms would be no less than those of Yao Shi. Thinking of this, Yi Futian nodded thoughtfully. If I can change her, that would be better. Saint Xia left with a flick of his sleeves. Incredible. Simply incredible. Yi Futian smiled and shook his head. Saint Xia was still quite adorable. You can come out, everyone, called Yi Futian. A line of figures suddenly flashed over towards him. They were the various saint-level figures of the 9 states. Dozhan, Yuqi, Zhuge Qingfeng and the others were all there. The people from the 9 states were all there cultivating, and so they had naturally heard everything that had gone on. So, have you elders all learned how to eavesdrop? Yi Futian said incredulously. A group of saint-level people had all been lying in hiding. This was really. The palace lord's affairs are the affairs of everyone from the palace. We naturally had to pay attention to them, said Yu Qi in dead seriousness. Yi Futian felt a burst of shame and blushed. I think that what Saint Xia said was correct. I too think that the princess is a good person, and you can get closer with her, continued Yu Qi. If their relationship became closer, and if Yi Futian became the son-in-law of Emperor Xia, then wouldn't the upper and lower realms be going into the future walking hand in hand? They did not need to speak of Yi Futian's talent. With it he could sweep through anyone unhindered, and none could match him. Such talent would inevitably lead to his rise in the world. It was just like in the Battle of Empty Realm. Although the great army admired him greatly, there were certainly those who bore envy for him in their hearts. If Yi Futian could have Princess Xia Qingyuan as a protective talisman, in the future he could truly do as he pleased and run rampant, and no one would dare to interfere with his plans. Chapter 1074. The days passed one by one, and in a flash more than a month had passed since the previous Battle of Empty Realm. The days passed one by one, and in a flash more than a month had passed since the previous Battle of Empty Realm. The great army that Emperor Xia's realm had stationed in the Empty Realm had taken full control of the area, and some cultivators had even been sent over from Emperor Xia's realm, using space rule power matrices to transport them. However, as one of the losing parties in the Battle of Empty Realm, Li Yao, who had been responsible for this Battle of Empty Realm, had not left yet. Emperor Li's city was still shattered and broken, and many of the places in it had not been repaired yet. The ruins of battle were still preserved there. Only a single great palace had been repaired. At that moment Li Yao was there. He had been cultivating in the Empty Realm all along. Your Highness. At that moment someone came towards him and bowed to him. Speak, said Li Yao. Yi Futian is still cultivating there, he has not left even once, the man said to Li Yao. Here is the news that I have uncovered from Emperor Xia's realm. There is great enmity between Yi Futian and many other people. Among them, the most obvious is the enmity between him and Li Heaven, and this hate runs the deepest. He once humiliated them by saying that there was no one of worth in Li Heaven below the saint level, and fought his way through the 33 layers of Li Heaven. He challenged and defeated Wang Chuan. Xia Qingyuan herself said this. Afterwards, Li Heaven did not take part in the Battle of Empty Realm. Anything else? Asked Li Yao. Gong Sun Zhong of Divine Cloud Valley and Xiao Sheng of the Xiao clan may be prejudiced against Yi Futian, the man continued his report. We ordered the cultivators to go to Emperor Xia's realm to investigate the news from Tianji Pavilion. Gong Sun Zhong probably admires Princess Xia Qingyuan, but he has hidden it very well. He likely does not dare to reveal his feelings. But he certainly wants to follow her and cultivate with her. Besides this, Xiao Sheng of the Xiao clan is Xia Qingyuan's cousin. His family dearly wishes for him to be by Xia Qingyuan's side and act as her assistant. Last year at Old Man Zhao's banquet at the Xiao clan, they gave vent to some of their discontent. Did you hear any concrete details of what happened that day? Asked Li Yao. The man nodded. Li Yao was extremely interested in this affair. Then speak, Li Yao said again. He then listened seriously to everything the man said, not missing even a little bit of it. He had not only ordered people to find out everything they could dealing with Emperor Xia's realm and Yi Futian, he had also had them find out everything that had happened in Emperor Xia's city that had to do with Yi Futian during the last Battle of Empty Realm. Brother Yuan Jin's death and their defeat at the Empty Realm all stemmed from them underestimating Yi Futian. They did not understand him well enough. If they had been given more time, Brother Yuan Jin would definitely have been able to uncover more details about Yi Futian, and thus would have been prepared to guard against his special ability to control demons. And it would not have been like how the Battle of Empty Realm actually turned out, in which they had been fooled by their opponents and had been defeated at every turn. Although Li Heaven was full of bitterness towards Yi Futian, at the moment there was nothing they could do about it. At the moment, it seemed that the only ones who could do anything were Gong Sun Zhong and Xiao Sheng. So, which one should he choose? For this step, he could not be wrong again. If he chose the wrong person, they would certainly directly report it to Xia Qingyuan. In that case, moving against Yi Futian would probably be impossible. Moreover, the force that he could bring to bear was not terribly strong. Those powerful saint-level figures of the top forces would not just casually obey his orders. Otherwise things would not be so difficult for him. His sworn brother was gone. So, he was the only one left who could make the decision. The Valley Master of Divine Cloud Valley, the foremost armorer in Emperor Xia's realm, had once pursued Emperor Xia. Now her descendant Gongsun Zhong admired Xia Qingyuan, and yet he dared not show it. He would probably not have the guts to betray her. And even if he did betray her, if the matter came to light, the conflict would not be too fierce. Divine Cloud Valley would not dare to protect him. Xiao Sheng was Xia Qingyuan's cousin and Queen Zhao's own kin. The Xiao clan had lofty ambitions, and were kinsmen of the emperor. Moreover, Xiao Sheng's goal was probably everything that Yi Futian had already done so far, and Xiao Sheng was still trying to form a marriage alliance with Divine Cloud Valley. Given this background, he was obviously bound to be much firmer than Gongsun Zhong. And as the cousin of Xia Qingyuan, and with his status as a member of the emperor's own family, he would naturally have even more ambitions. He is the one. A cold light flashed in Li Yao's eyes. To the man bowing before him he said, "Where is Xiao Sheng now?" "He is in Kongxian City in the Empty Realm," the man answered. Xiao Sheng had not left the Empty Realm either. Princess Xia Qingyuan was there as well. He obviously would not leave her side too hurriedly. "Make contact with our spices in the Empty Realms secretly. Make sure you do not reveal yourself," ordered Li Yao. The man nodded and said, "I understand. If this matter goes poorly, you will be the one I will ask about it," said Li Yao coldly. If he could use Xiao Sheng, he would do so. If he could not use him now, he might have some use later on. Yi Futian naturally did not know that Li Yao was still plotting against him. Of course, he had made a display of his abilities at the Battle of Empty Realm and have revealed his murderous intent towards Li Yao. He had also inflicted heavy casualties upon the cultivators of Emperor Li's realm. It was only natural that Li Yao would want him dead. Thus, as far as Yi Futian was concerned, he needed to continue to work hard and raise his cultivation level, and strive to enter the divine path as soon as possible. Now he had already faintly touched the will of the great path. His combat ability was extremely high. If he could make it up to the realm of proving holiness, then his ability to protect himself would become much stronger. Other than this, he could look for an opportunity to kill Li Yao at a later time. The period of his cultivation flew by, and in a flash another period of time had passed. On this day, Yi Futian finally stopped cultivating and called together the cultivators of the barren state. "Are we preparing to go home?" Gu Donglu asked Yi Futian once the cultivators of the barren state were gathered together. The Empty Realm is a force that the realms of the three emperors take turns controlling. Cultivators from Iver Plain have all come here to cultivate. Thus, the Empty Realm has become an extremely prosperous trading place. Cultivators from each realm all come here bearing all the treasures they possess to engage in trade, exchanging them for the resources that they need to cultivate. Since we have come here, we shouldn't let this be a wasted trip. Yi Futian smiled and said, "The princess promised to have divine implements forged for all of you. But cultivation resources are scarce in the barren state, and saint-level combat spells are so scarce as to become precious. You should all take a walk around the Empty Realm and trade for some of the things that you need." "Palace Lord, are you telling us to spend freely?" asked Yu Qi with a smile. Xia Qingyuan had given Yi Futian fragments of the Great Path a while ago. Their palace lord was quite rich now. "Okay, if you see anything you like you can have it." Yi Futian smiled and nodded. The fragments of the Great Path that had been excavated in the Empty Realm over 7 days were certainly enough for him to let them spend freely for a day. "In addition, I am preparing to trade my fragments of the Great Path for some fragments of the Great Path that all you elders need for your cultivation. Later, you can all use these at the palace to continue cultivating your corruption," continued Yi Futian. The 9 states' resources were scarce. Xia Qingyun had even said that the Great Path did not exist in the land of the lower realm. In addition, Master Dozhan, Yu Qi and Zhuge Qingfeng's natural talent was nothing outstanding. Although they were considered top-notch in the 9 states, in the eyes of the upper realms their talent was far from enough. After entering the Saint Plane through the battle of proving holiness, they had realized that their cultivation had reached a bottleneck. They wanted to continue on to the next step, but it would probably be difficult for them to reach the top. It was said to be difficult to reach the second tier of the divine path. Even if they truly reached that level, that would probably be the end. Saint Xia and Saint Li had both stopped at that tier. In order to go further, they had left the 9 states and trained in the upper realms. Perhaps they would have another chance. All the fragments that Princess gave you were space element fragments of the Great Path. They are advantageous for your cultivation. You may not need very much right now, but later, when you level up to the Saint Plane, the number of fragments of the Great Path that you will need to use will grow larger and larger. No matter how long you let us spend freely for, you should keep some fragments for yourself, Dozhan said to Yi Futian. For Dozhan, the divine path had once been nothing more than a wild dream. And not only him, everyone from the barren state felt the same way. Now all they thought about was protecting the palace, and make it continue to become stronger and more prosperous. In addition, they hoped that their students Yi Futian and Yu Sheng could go even farther than they had. Master, do you still need to worry about my future cultivation? Said Yi Futian with a smile. Go on, said Yi Futian. Everyone smiled at Dozhan. He had indeed worried greatly about Yi Futian. With Yi Futian's talent and Princess Xia Qingyuan's high regard for him, how could he lack for cultivation resources? Now, before he had even become a saint, he had already shown off his once-in-a-lifetime talent. He had the power to rise high in the world, and when he finally entered the Saint Plane he would naturally be even more outstanding. Please call Saint Xia, Saint Li, and Moon Saint together, said Yi Futian with a slight smile. The group took their leave of him. Saint Xia and the others were not far away. After hearing the news they happily accompanied Yi Futian on a walk. I was just about to go for a walk around the empty realm myself, said Yao Shi with a smile as she walked over. You won't mind if I take a walk with you, will you, Lord Yi? You're already here, why would he mind? Asked Saint Xia. Yao Shi did not care. She could see that Saint Xia did not like her at all. She bowed slightly to him, with a warm smile on her face all along. Let Saint Xia say secretly that she was awful. As long as Yi Futian couldn't control his feelings it was all right. As an elder, Saint Xia had certain expectations of Yi Futian. He had not dared to think of it before, but now, there were some things that he did dare to think of. Far away, Xia Qingyuan looked up into the sky. She gave an order to the people beside her, and suddenly the group of them rose up into the air. They came up behind Yi Futian and the others. Yi Futian noticed one among them. It was someone who was always there protecting Xia Qingyuan. Elder, called Yi Futian. Don't worry about us, said the person. Xia Qingyuan had ordered them to ensure Yi Futian's safety. Yi Futian looked over at Xia Qingyuan. An astonished expression came over Saint Xia's face. Things had become more promising. Let's go. The group of them rose up higher in the air and left the mountain range. Back where Xia Qingyuan was, Tianji looked at her and said, Princess, why are you doing this? It's no bother, said Xia Qingyuan calmly. Emperor Li's realm may have wanted to fight to the death with Emperor Xia's realm, but in reality they still had not gone so far as to dare to pay her back for the results of the Battle of Empty Realm. In the Battle of Empty Realm, the two sides had agreed that life and death would be ruled by fate. Sending an assassin would be sufficient reason to send in the troops. Under the rules they had set, there was still a chance of this. But now the Battle of Empty Realm had ended. Emperor Li's realm would not go so far as to madly send someone against her. The people of Emperor Li's realm must realize that that would be a disaster for them. And Yi Futian's performance at the Battle of Empty Realm had been too dazzling. He had killed many people from Emperor Li's realm once again. This was something that Li Yao would certainly hold him accountable for. Before they left the Empty Realm, Xia Qingyuan would certainly have to ensure his safety. Since you are going to do this, why don't you go with them? Asked Tianji. Xia Qingyuan turned and gazed at him coldly. Tianji suddenly bowed slightly and said, I have said too much. Xia Qingyuan looked back, then walked forward and left. He would really ask her to go with Yi Futian. Chapter 1075. All the cultivators who had come from the various realms were gathered together in Kongxian City. Many saint-level figures had come here to cultivate, and it was all because of the space element fragments of the Great Path. All the cultivators who had come from the various realms were gathered together in Kongxian City. Many saint-level figures had come here to cultivate, and it was all because of the space element fragments of the Great Path. In addition, the space element fragments of the Great Path were valuable in and of themselves, and thus it was very easy to trade them for other kinds of fragments of the Great Path. Yi Futian and his group had not been strolling through Kongxian City for a long time before they had managed to trade many of their space element fragments of the Great Path, exchanging them for things that the saints of the barren state needed for their cultivation. Even Saint Xia, Saint Li and Moon Saint each got some. Even though Saint Xia and Saint Li were held in very high status in the 9 states, cultivation resources such as fragments of the Great Path were not something that they could easily get their hands on. Where could they go in the 9 states to find such things? If they could obtain a great number of fragments of the Great Path, then the battles of proving holiness would become almost meaningless. Saint Xia sighed inwardly. Did he and the other old people really still need Yi Futian to take care of them? That was so. Even sage-level figures had participated in the Battle of Empty Realm, and they would all have fragments of the Great Path distributed among them. Xuanji Mountain was the best spot for trade in Kongxian City. Xuanji Mountain was situated at the center of Kongxian City, rising up into the clouds like a celestial mountain. There were many pavilions and palaces on it, and clouds drifted across it. Saint-level figures had taken up many positions on the mountain in order to cultivate, and to trade for the things that they needed. Most people would trade their treasures for fragments of the Great Path. Of course, there were also a few people who would trade items for other items. At that moment, Yi Futian and his group were at that celestial mountain. The 9 states truly are quite poor, said Saint Xia as he gazed at the dazzling assortment of treasures there. He sighed inwardly. The divine implements and magic treasures on this celestial mountain were worth as much as a city. And there were also made top-level spells. He naturally understood that many of the disciples of the top forces of the upper realms had brought treasures to the Battle of Empty Realm that were not any worse than the top-ranked divine implements on the divine implement ranking of the 9 states. For example, Gong Sun Zhong of Divine Cloud Valley's divine armoring cauldron was extremely powerful. When even sage-level figures possessed such powerful divine implements, this showed the power of top forces of the upper realms. Why are some of the cultivation spells here cheaper than divine implements? Asked Di Shaoshi. There is only one of each divine implement, so it is a one-time trade. As for cultivation spells, the one who is selling it has probably already learned it. And even if he hasn't, he can still sell it to many different people, answered Gu Donglu. But even so, none of these prices are cheap, they are just cheaper than some of the other prices. Neither side in these trades will come out the loser, each will get what they need. Yi Shaoshi scratched his head and said, You are so amazing, third brother. You can see through to the most important part of an affair with merely a glance. You are getting better and better at being a toady, said Zhuge Qingfeng with a grin. I'm only speaking the truth, second brother, said Yi Shaoshi in all seriousness. However, the cultivation spells here have been traded many times over. Even though there are some high-level spells, they probably don't have the highest-level ones. Many of the spells that are passed down through the great powers of the upper realms cannot be lightly taught to outsiders, much less traded many times to many different people, continued Gu Donglu. What you have said is mostly true, young man. But there are always exceptions, a voice called from a pavilion far away. There they saw an old man lazily sitting on the ground. A group of people sat on the ground in front of him, and 2 women were at their head. Yi Futian had seen them before. They were Gong Sun Ni and Gong Sun Xian of Divine Cloud Valley. Fifth brother. Yi Shaoshi touched Luo Fan on the arm. He narrowed his eyes and whispered, What a rare opportunity. Get out of here. Luo Fan glanced at the fat man. That guy was always trying to stir up trouble. And he actually dared to tease his sworn brother? Gong Sun and Gong Sun Xian turned and looked over at them. An astonished look came into Gong Sun Ni's eyes when she saw them. These people had shown themselves to be heroes of their generation at the Battle of Empty Realm, even eclipsing Princess Xia Qingyuan's glory. But from her perspective, her brother Gong Sun Zhong had been coldly received by the princess, and had suffered much humiliation at Yi Futian's hands. Thus, he was not as heroic as he had been before. He had sought to prove some things on the battlefield, but no one in the Battle of Empty Realm had been able to outshine Yi Futian. And not only that, she and Shaoxing would likely be taking the same path in the future. A marriage alliance between Divine Cloud Valley and the Shao clan was greatly wished for by both families. And she knew what Shaoxing wanted. But Yi Futian had received the princess's trust much more than he had. Gong Sun Xian also looked at Yi Futian, but she did not think too much of it. Her disposition was different from her sister's. She did not like to think about her family's schemes. Her pretty eyes also found Luo Fan. He avoided her gaze, seemingly deliberately. She stared at him for a while, then finally averted her gaze. Yi Shaoshi paid close attention to where the two of them were looking. The fat man narrowed his eyes and whispered, "Coward?" Luo Fan glanced at him fiercely, then said, "Are you looking to die, fatty?" "It seems that you are all talk, fifth brother," scolded Yi Shaoshi. In the past he had been so brave when flirting with beauties. Now it seemed as if that had ended. "Why do you say this, sir?" Gu Donglu asked the old man. In the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, many forces flow through history like sand. But although many forces disappear, the cultivation spells that they leave behind can still be passed down. Some of them will be cherished and practiced alone, but some will be integrated into other top-notch spells and be used for trade, said the old man. Gu Donglu nodded. "What you say makes sense, sir." The old man stroked his beard and said, "Look at my cultivation spell." It was passed down from a vanished top force from Emperor Yan's realm's cultivation methods. It is called Judgment of 9 Refining Flames. Yi Futian's face went dark. The old man had a common face, but there was a little bit of celestial heroism to him. However, in the blink of an eye he had started peddling his spells. Why did he look so much like a swindler? "Let's listen to him, his spell sounds fantastic," said Yi Futian as he walked forward. There was a damaged old scroll before him that gave off an aura of antiquity. Beside it was a jade scroll. "This is naturally a perfect level saint spell," the old man said seriously as he looked at Yi Futian. "The judgment of 9 refining flames takes a great path of fire and refines it to the extreme. Even only a single great path of fire has the power to destroy everything around it. But with this one is able to come infinitely close to the source of all flame will. After learning the spell you can integrate it into your other powers. There is not need to say too much about how amazing this is. You must know that in order to cultivate to the saint level you need to sense the great path. A powerful cultivation spell can enhance your perception and let you integrate yourself more easily into the great path. If you don't believe it, that scroll gives an introduction to the spell. The jade scroll is the spell itself. You can look over the scroll if you'd like." Yi Futian nodded. He knelt before the pavilion and opened up the scroll. According to the introduction to the spell, it could allow you to continuously temper your body with the great path of fire and turn your body of flesh into a body of flame. "Are you interested?" Yi Futian looked at Gong Sun and Gong Sun Xian beside him. Those who are skilled at cultivating flame spells will all naturally be interested in this. These two girls just think that the asking price is too high. However, this is the only exiting copy. Once it is sold it will be lost. I only ask for 10,000 fragments of the Great Path of Space. This is absolutely not too much to ask. The old man looked at Yi Futian. "Would you like to consider it, young man? If this spell was truly so powerful, then 10,000 fragments of the Great Path of Space was certainly not too high an asking price. After all, this was a top-notch spell of the saint level. It would only be natural if Gong Sun and Gong Sun Xian could not afford it." However, Yi Futian did not believe this old man's cunning words. "That price is indeed a bit too high. If you lower it a little, we might consider buying it," Yi Futian said to the old man. The old man looked into Yi Futian's eyes and saw how clear they were. He narrowed his own eyes a bit, then smiled and said, "Fine, 8,000 each." Yi Futian smiled and said, "So it's not the last existing copy? If I spend a little bit of my energy, I can make a copy," said the old man. "Since it's not the only copy, then 10,000 is too much. Give us a deal. How about 5,000 each? In that case I will consider buying a copy, and these two women will do the same," said Yi Futian. The old man looked at Yi Futian through narrowed eyes. "What a treacherous boy. Very well, I guess I will take a loss. 5,000 it is then," said the old man. He had already cultivated up the third tier of the Saint Plane by now. With only one more step he could break through to the plane of nirvana. He needed extremely large fragments of the Great Path, otherwise he would not be selling spells like this. There was nothing he could do. He had cultivated to such a high level, and the amount of resources that he needed to use to go further was truly frightening. "If this spell does not do what it said you would after I purchase it, you may need to return these fragments of the Great Path to me, Elder," said Yi Futian. The old man looked at the crowd of people behind Yi Futian and knew that there was force behind his words. His matrix would be very strong. The old man nodded. "No problem." Yi Futian took out 5,000 fragments of the Great Path and handed to him, then picked up the Jade Scroll and the Ancient Scroll. But he did not put them away, instead handed them to Gongsun Xian and said, "Divine Cloud Valley is a force that focuses on armoring. You must be good at fire magic them. Can you help me see how good this is?" Gongsun Xian was stunned. She looked at Gongsun and I. The people from the 9 states did not understand what Yi Futian was trying to do either. Gongsun Xian was silent for a while, then nodded. She took the scrolls. She merged her spiritual willpower with the Jade Scroll, and suddenly a mysterious power from the scroll entered her mind. It suddenly turned into a flame and then disappeared. After a while, Gongsun Xian opened her eyes and saw that the Jade Scroll had disappeared. Her face changed. "This, how is it?" asked Yi Futian. The elder was not lying. "This spell is indeed mysterious and powerful." She nodded. "But this spell, I said that it was the only copy. Since this happened, the woman will have to buy it again to give to the young man. I'll have to work hard to copy it," said the old man with a smile. "No need. Miss Gongsun does not have many fragments of the Great Path. I had planned to buy this and give it to Fifth Brother. Since Miss Gongsun has read it, that counts as Fifth Brother having given it to her," said Yi Futian. "Of course, if Miss Gongsun is willing to share it with Fifth Brother, that would be wonderful." "Hey," Luo Fan blushed. Yu Xing curled his lips in disbelief. After so many years, this habit of his had still not changed. An astonished look also flashed in Gongsun Xian's beautiful eyes. She looked at Luo Fan, then nodded. "Since Lord Yi was the one to purchase this, I will naturally share it with Lord Luo." "You boy," the old man pointed at Yi Futian. How could he not know that he had been duped? These two guys definitely knew each other and had a close relationship. Otherwise, why would they talk of sharing it? They could probably share it through their spiritual will. Gu Donglu looked at Yi Futian. His sworn brother seemed to have changed a little bit after fighting in Lihan Heaven. Chapter 1076. Xia Qingyuan spent most of her time at the place where the space sacred mountain was, training. Xia Qingyuan spent most of her time at the place where the space sacred mountain was, training. However, at that moment, she was standing on top of one of the mountains there, staring blankly at the vista before her. She had spent her many years thus far training diligently, chasing after her father's footsteps and hopefully be able to succeed her father's will. Her mind at training had always been planted on solid rock. She had always been extremely disciplined and spent minimal time thinking about things that had little to do with training. Yet, at present, she was in a dazed state, and her emotions were rather unstable. Such an emotional state should not have been happened with her, and yet there was no doubt that it happened. Xia Qingyuan closed her eyes and steadied her breathing, trying her very best to recompose herself and fend off the unnecessary thoughts. Wind blew from far away at that moment. Xia Qingyuan closed her eyes and her eyebrows twitched, looking rather cold. someone appeared behind Xia Qingyuan, and it was none other than Xiao Xing. Xiao Qingyuan naturally knew what the Xiao clan wanted of her, especially when the members of the clan concerned were her uncle and her cousin. While she had not been spending much time around them, she nonetheless knew what they were up to. She did not deliberately distance herself from them. In the world of cultivators, imperial power was more than just political power. It also had the power to bring everything to their knees. The very reason why her father was the Emperor Xia was because her father was a Renhuang, an emperor of humanity. It was outright impossible for her relatives to usurp power from him, and the Xiao clan dared not even harbor such thoughts. They only wanted to be closer to the Renhuang and achieve higher status. If Xiao Xing were to prove capable enough, Xia Qingyuan would not have been opposed to the idea, as he was her cousin after all, and a clansman of her mother's family. She would have definitely helped promote him if he proved capable. She knew that, and the Xiao clan knew that. As such, Xiao Xing had indeed intended to prove his worth through efforts in the Battle of Empty Realm. It was a pity that there was that one person who outshined everyone else in the Battle of Empty Realm. All the others had no choice but to be kicked to the sidelines. "What matters do you have with me, cousin?" Xia Qingyuan turned around and looked at Xiao Xing. Xiao Xing was dumbfounded as he looked at the extremely beautiful eyes of his cousin. He was unable to see an anger in those clear eyes of hers, and he had no idea how she thought of him at the moment. Nonetheless, she addressing him as cousin still counted for something. Despite being the princess of Emperor Xia's realm, she was still the biological daughter of his aunt. But then again, Xiao Xing dared not slack just because Xia Qingyuan addressed him as a cousin. He bowed and said, "I've something to say, princess." "Speak then." Xia Qingyuan nodded. "While it was without doubt that we won the Battle of Empty Realm this time due to Yi Futian, and that it was only natural that you trusted and rewarded him for his efforts, but he nonetheless had his faults near the end of the Battle of Empty Realm, despite his merits. I think that it is a bit too much to simply assign all of those who are meant to protect you to him, after you have rewarded our people." Xia Qingyuan had her eyes locked on Xiao Xing as he spoke. She then asked, "So you're thinking that I have rewarded Yi Futian a bit too much then?" "Indeed." Xiao Xing lowered his head and continued, "I dared not bring that up in front of everyone else, and so I only brought it up before you, princess." Right before the Battle of Empty Realm ended, he could have just cut down the imperial flag right there and then, bagging the victory for Emperor Xia's realm, yet he did not do so. Instead, he caused many deaths to our people, due only to fulfill his own ends. Did that not count as a fault of his? While the army are impressed with his merits and the importance that you've placed upon him, thus not daring to speak their minds in public, but I'm afraid there'd be talk behind his back. One cultivates the mind on the journey to cultivation. While it is true that the states of mind of cultivators are unyielding and vast, but there is simply no saints and sages without flaws. What do you think about the comparison of military strengths between Emperor Li's realm, Demon Peacock Emperor's realm, and Emperor Xia's realm, now that the Battle of Empty Realm is over? Xia Qingyuan asked. Emperor Li's realm is the strongest, while Emperor Xia's realm and the Demon Peacock Emperor's realm are perhaps in a tie, but it's hard to tell for sure, Xiao Xing answered. If we were to take the powers of Yi Futian and his people into consideration, and how Yuan Jin fought right before he died, there is no doubt that Emperor Li's realm is the strongest, while Emperor Xia's realm is right behind. Demon Peacock Emperor's realm is definitely not all that far behind that of ours as well. Yet, if we were to take Yi Futian and his people out of the equation, Emperor Xia's realm would have been the weakest. Xia Qingyuan then slowly added, "As such, if it had not been for Yi Futian and his people, what did you think our odds at coming out on top would have been? How many lives would have been lost?" Xiao Xing hung his head low hearing her words, as he was unable to say anything. While he still had his own ideas that he clung to. How Xia Qingyuan thought of Yi Futian would have naturally been done from her point of view, yet his perspective of looking at the problem was the exact opposite to that of Xia Qingyuan. Now that we have won the Battle of Empty Realm and that Demon Peacock Emperor's realm out of the picture, if we were to fight Emperor Li's realm head-on, how many lives would have been lost? Xia Qingyuan continued to ask. Xiao Xing continued to hang his head low and stay silent. If that was how his cousin looked at things, then it was pointless how he looked at things. Everyone has their own standpoint and they see what is in their best interests. While I'm not an exception myself, I do not think there is any person who would be able to be flawlessly altruistic. That is not a saint. A person who is able to be cast their own standpoint aside and consider solely for the best interests of other people is a god. What I'm able to see are but merits and faults. If one's merits are greater than their faults, then they naturally need to be rewarded. We can to rule empty realm for 10 years, is 7 days of reward that out of question in comparison? Xia Qingyuan gazed at Xiao Sheng and said, before you ask strict requirements of others, it's best to first look at yourself. Xiao Sheng's pupils, which were looking at the ground, contracted. That line sounded rather severe. The joy that she brought him by addressing him as cousin had all been thrown out of the window at that very moment. You could excuse yourself, Xia Qingyuan said coldly. Xiao Sheng cupped his hands slightly and then excused himself. Xia Qingyuan continued to gaze far away. It was rare for her to say so much. She had said a lot that day and made her words sound that severe, in hopes of being able to tell Xiao Sheng to reflect on himself. That was considered a reminder from her. If Xiao Sheng had not been her cousin, she would not have even bothered saying that much to him in the first place. Li Yao, what do you mean by this? A silhouette was seen shooting past from far away. One figure after another appeared and blitzed at frightening speeds, heading for one single direction. Xia Qingyuan turned her eyes in that direction and she frowned. She then stepped out as a blue phoenix appeared beneath her feet. She quickly appeared elsewhere as she zipped past in the sky. A small group of people appeared far away. Other than Li Yao, there were also several saints in that group. The outcome of the Battle of Empty Realm is set. This place is now under Emperor Xia's realm's command. Unrelated ones are forbidden to get near. What do you people from Emperor Li's realm mean by doing this? The sacred general of Tian said coldly, sending shock throughout the space. Many turned to look at Li Yao, thinking if he was trying to renege on the deal the realms had made. That could have only happened if Emperor Li attempted to wage a war against Emperor Xia. I just happened to free and wanted to pay a visit to Princess Qingyuan. Li Yao smiled and said. Xia Qingyuan frowned and asked the sacred general telepathically, are there many of them? If those people had indeed came all the way there, then there was no way their numbers would have been that few. There are quite a number of saints appearing near the place. Some of them are of advanced training. The sacred general of Tian then asked, do you wish to retreat, princess? No need for that, Xia Qingyuan replied. If Li Yao dared to come on his own, then she did not believe that he would have dared to make a move against her. Li Yao, the 3 emperors' realms had an agreement that the region was entrusted to the rule of the party that won. This place is now Emperor Xia's realm's territory. Any unauthorized entry shall be seen as invasions. Xia Qingyuan then added coldly, everyone else, here are your orders. If the people of Emperor Li's realm dare to take another step into the region, kill them. I'm just taking a stroll around these parts. There is no need to get so serious, princess, Li Yao said as he smiled nonchalantly, turning his eyes at the matrices at the mountains and said, how many great path fragments had been unearthed so far? None of your business, Xia Qingyuan replied. There were several people taking flight and left the place at frightening speeds as they spoke. Yi Futian and the others still remained at Xuanji Mountain. They spent considerable amount of spirit stones of great path to trade for several training methods. The saints of Barren State acquired 1 set of methods each, which included the Moon Saint as well. He owed the Moon Saint for what the saint did to help him back at the Sacred War of the 9 states, which he was compelled to repay. Whenever he could have afforded to look out for the Moon Saint, he would have done his part to help out. Yi Futian squatted before a pavilion, but he was feeling somewhat uneasy, as if he was being watched. Several silhouettes appeared beside Yi Futian. Yaya and the Glass Saint, both of whom had been far away, closed in on him. They were not the only ones to do so. Several powerful cultivators assigned by Xia Qingyuan came close behind Yi Futian, as they all seemed to have felt something. Yi Futian acted as if he had sensed nothing and continued to chat. He stood up a while later and asked Yaya telepathically, are they powerful? I sensed saintly aura from them, and they were all keeping an eye on you, Yaya replied telepathically, and Yi Futian naturally sensed someone staring at him. We'll just wait around and see, Yi Futian said telepathically. With him out in the open and his supposed enemies in the dark, it was only natural that he dared not pull anything rash. While he was indeed protected by several extremely powerful figures, but if it were to be powerful saints making a move against him, then it would have been difficult for them to protect him nonetheless. He felt rather cold inside at the moment. Those from Emperor Li's realm had lost. Are they really coming for me now? Yi Futian naturally understood that the end of the Battle of Empty Realm did not mean that Li Yao would not have dared to kill him. While he dared not make a move against Xia Qingyuan, the same could not have been said with Yi Futian. Yi Futian understood why Xia Qingyuan arranged for people to stay by his side for protection. While Xia Qingyuan acted coldly and smiles were hardly seen on her face, she nonetheless was being rather kind to him. He was able to tell that much after getting in touch with her more frequently. See Li Yao anywhere? Yi Futian asked Yaya telepathically. If Li Yao was there, things would have been easier. Nowhere to be found, Yaya answered. Yi Futian's expression turned somewhat colder. If Li Yao were to be present when those people tried to make a move on him, then the prince would have been made a target by everyone else. As such, it was most advantageous for him to not be around. It seemed that Li Yao had thought things out clearly. If we were to make the first move, what are the odds that we get to take them down? Yi Futian asked again. We can't even be sure what many of them are actually here. We're only able to keep an eye of the few who are watching you. We can't tell if there are others hidden in Xuanji Mountain, Yaya answered. She dared not make any moves without knowing what they were up against. Yi Futian's expression was a cold one. They were out in the open while the enemy was in the dark. Man, this feeling sucks. Chapter 1077. Li Yao and his people did not make another move in the mountains. He looked at Xia Qingyuan and said, Xia Qingyuan, Dali dynasty and Emperor Xia's realm are neighbors. Why do we need to keep fighting each other? If you're willing to join hands with me, both imperial realms would allies from here on out. We would be able to fight for resources of great paths elsewhere by then, and that goes without saying the empty realm as well. Li Yao and his people did not make another move in the mountains. He looked at Xia Qingyuan and said, Xia Qingyuan, Dali dynasty and Emperor Xia's realm are neighbors. Why do we need to keep fighting each other? If you're willing to join hands with me, both imperial realms would allies from here on out. We would be able to fight for resources of great paths elsewhere by then, and that goes without saying the empty realm as well. Xia Qingyuan frowned hard. She did not pay much attention to Li Yao's provocations. In such pointed exchange of words, women were always in a disadvantage, just like how Yi Futian and the Black Wind Condor went about provoking Kong Xian back then. Any of the saints around making any moves? Xia Qingyuan continued asking the sacred general of Tian telepathically. There are several more saints showing up here. The sacred general of Tian continued to guard Xia Qingyuan by her side. Regardless of what happened, he placed the safety of Xia Qingyuan before anything else. Xia Qingyuan, if you intend to ascend the position of Renhuang in the future, I wouldn't stop you if you were to be my wife. I wouldn't even need you to train at Emperor Li's realm. On the contrary, I'd gladly assist you with all my might, Li Yao continued saying. The way he provoked Xia Qingyuan resembled how the Black Wind Condor provoked Kong Xian back then. Things continued to be at a stalemate for quite some time. Those saints continued to be active in surrounding areas but did not cross the border. That was the same with Li Yao. That made Xia Qingyuan frown hard. Yi Futian and the Black Wind Condor back then had their own agenda when they provoked Kong Xian, and that was to lure her demonic beasts out of their lair, in order for Yi Futian to enthrall them. What is Li Yao doing all this for then? He did not seem to have any intentions of invading their turf. Even at that very moment, Xia Qingyuan still did not think Li Yao would have dared to make a move on her. It would have been possible for him to still have the empty realm in mind, but making a move against her would not have been something Li Yao could have decided for himself, unless that was Emperor Li's orders. If Emperor Li were to decide to move against them, he would have done far more, just so to ensure the greatest chance of success in just one go. What is Li Yao really up to then? They are buying time. Xia Qingyuan seemed to have realized something all of a sudden and then gave her orders. Cultivators around the mountains are to retreat hundreds of miles away from here immediately. Any who disobeys the order are to be killed with extreme prejudice. Her voice was extremely cold. Li Yao's eyes were fixed at Xia Qingyuan as he said, Xia Qingyuan, empty realm might have been ruled by Emperor Xia's realm now, but there are still cultivators from other realms around. Don't you think you're going too far? Move. Xia Qingyuan did not bother with Li Yao. She realized that Li Yao was only there to keep a close eye on her. Acknowledged. The mighty ones in the mountains received their orders and burst with terrifying aura. Li Yao then said, well, if you insist, I shall take my leave. He turned around and left as soon as he finished. All the other saints retreated as well. None of them had been people from Emperor Li's realm. However, the crown prince of Emperor Li's realm seemed to have been very charitable that day, asking for them to take a stroll there and reward them adequately for doing so. They were only asked to take a stroll there and they needed to pledge to nothing. No one would have refused such offers. As such, they really came to take a stroll with Li Yao at the mountains. They thought Li Yao intended to woo Xia Qingyuan and simply had them around to buff up his entourage. But from how things proceeded, it seemed that Li Yao had other agendas in mind instead. But then again, none of that had anything to do with them. They finished what they were supposed to do, and so they were to simply leave after Tot. None of them did anything but talking strolls around the place. Is Xia Qingyuan really going to kill us for doing so? Li Yao blitzed away at frightening speeds and was out of sight within a heartbeat. He did not look like an invader at all. It was clear that he sensed that Xia Qingyuan knew something, and so he ran away as quickly as possible, for fear that Xia Qingyuan would have came for him next. Depart immediately and look for Yi Futian. Xia Qingyuan was unable to spare any time to pursue Li Yao. She realized what Li Yao was truly up to by then. But then again, Yi Futian was guarded by the mighty ones she sent personally, and there were also saints from the 9 states around. Even if those from Emperor Li's realm intended to make a move against him, they would have still been in for a very tough fight. A group flew at very high speeds. Powerful aura filled the place everywhere in Xuanji Mountain. Yi Futian and his people were not all that obvious on Xuanji Mountain, but it seemed that there were countless pairs of eyes watching them. A group of people appeared above Xuanji Mountain at that moment. They tore to the skies and one of them said loudly, "The princess is attacked." Li Yao led mighty ones and surrounded the sacred mountain. You are to reinforce her at once. Many looked up at the sky and were surprised to find the one saying that to be Xiao Sheng. The mighty ones behind Yi Futian were startled all of a sudden. They were being pinned down by the enemy, but said enemy simply watched them without doing anything. So they're after the princess by doing all these? Let's go. They took flight in a heartbeat, but then saw silhouettes appearing in all directions at Xuanji Mountain from the dark. Terrifying auras swept the place and demonic might of overwhelming magnitude was sensed. You all could leave, but leave Yi Futian and Yu Xing behind. A cold, overbearing voice was heard. Chao Kong. A cold voice was heard. That overwhelming demonic might shrouded the environment. It was an extremely renowned practitioner of demonic arts in Dali Dynasty after all, and he was extremely formidable. Chao Yuan, one of the people who perished in the flag battles of the Battle of Empty Realm, was a descendant of his. The mighty ones from Emperor Xia's realm looked grim. Other than Chao Kong, there were also other practitioners of demonic arts and swordsmen about, who were probably people from Dali Sword Mountain. It was almost impossible for the guards to just take Yi Futian and his people to break out from such a barricade in a short span of time. What are you all waiting for? If something were to happen to the princess, who would shoulder the responsibility? Xiao Xing shouted in the air, those by Yi Futian's side are to remain behind and escort him back to Emperor Xia's city. The guards were troubled, not knowing if they should leave or they should stay. If they were to leave, the enemy might have made a move on Yi Futian. But if they were to stay, they had to consider Xiao Xing's status. There was no doubt his words would have proven true if he were to send word personally. While none of them would have believed that Emperor Li's realm would have dared to make a move on the princess, but they were none who dared to bet on it. They needed to make their choice between the two options. We'll head back. The ones from the 9 states, stay here, a voice was heard saying, making the decision. A group of people then took to the air, heading far away. Xiao Sheng scanned below and saw Gong Sun Ni and Gong Sun Xian on Xuanji Mountain. He then said, "People of Divine Cloud Valley, come with me." "All right." Gong Sun Ni nodded. There was no need for them to stay behind if all the enemy wanted was Yi Futian and Yu Sheng. Furthermore, Xiao Sheng might have been her future husband anymore. "Sister," Gong Sun Xian called. It was apparent that Yi Futian's side was more lacking in terms of powers then. There were several saints behind her, making it possible for them to join HD fight. "Let's go." Gong Sun and I did not bother with Gong Sun Xian's thoughts. It was more dangerous to stay behind, and she naturally felt so as well. Gong Sun Xian was exasperated and followed suit, turning to look at Yi Futian and said, "Be careful." They met up with Xiao Sheng and the mighty ones from the Xiao clan soon enough, leaving that side at extreme speeds, heading for the mountains. Only saints from the Barren State, as well as Saint Xia, the Glass Saint and the Moon Saint, whom Yi Futian was more friendly with, were left at Yi Futian's side by then. While Saint Xia was actually concerned for the princess' safety as well, but things did seem more dire where they were at the moment. If their enemies intended to take down the princess, he would not have been of much help anyway. "All who do not have anything to do with this, leave." A shout was heard. The entire Xuanji Mountain was shrouded by terrifying demonic might. Chao Kong had agreed to move against Yi Futian not only because Li Yao bided him to do so. In truth, even the crown prince did not have the right to just command the top-notch figures of the demonic clan. He was doing it because of Yi Futian and Yu Sheng. Li Yao was right about one thing: Yi Futian would have posed a great threat in the future. It was naturally best to take him out while he was still at Empty Realm. If Yi Futian were to be allowed to return to Emperor Xia's realm, it would have been a lot more difficult to kill him in the future. Even if they were to succeed doing so, it would have been impossible for them to leave alive. As such, they chose to make a move there. There were many saints from other realms at Xuanji Mountain, but they naturally would not have wanted to be a part of the conflict between Emperor Li's realm and Emperor Xia's realm. One figure after another took to the skies and left. Within mere moments, there were only a handful of extremely formidable saints who did not bother about the conflict remaining at the mountain. The others who remained were none other than Yi Futian and his people. Towering demonic might pinned them down from above, as if the enemy was trying to bring the sky down on the entire Xuanji Mountain. The previously misty mountain turned to look like Doomsday, where demonic clouds rolled about and the face of an ancient devil appearing in the sky, throwing a palm attack on the mountain. The huge mountain quickly crumbled, with cracks appearing non-stop as it headed straight for the spot where Yi Futian and the others were at. Yaya looked at the sky and burst with terrifying sword will from within. A sword diagram appeared right above them, shrouding everyone within. Devastating light pulse on the sword will, tearing everything around apart as boundless aura of the sword shot upwards. The huge palm blocked out the sky as it came crashing down. The sword diagram crumbled with a loud rumble. The palm continued to bear on them and Yaya transformed into a sword and shot upwards. Her finger pointed at the palm and boundless sword will lashed out, shattering the palm. Yaya grumbled and looked ashen after doing that. "Take him away," Yaya then ordered the village chief. "But, madam," the village chief looked pale. He naturally sensed the aura about Chao Kong. That demonic figure was a holiness of nirvana. It was someone who his mistress would have only been able to defeat at her prime. While she had indeed been growing at frightening speeds in the past several years, but she had a long way to go before reaching the height of a holiness of nirvana. There were steps thumping down. It seemed as if a devil had descended on top of Xuanji Mountain. "Get going." "I can't do this for long," Yaya said. She made for higher altitude as boundless sword will coursed about her body. Terrifying phenomenon appeared in her surroundings as boundless sword will was gathered, turning into a sword diagram with her at the center, standing tall in the air. At that moment, Yaya seemed to have turned completely into a sword. Boundless sword will flowed at her direction from far away. A terrifying sword matrix seemed to have coalesced there. The Sword Saint of the Void. Chao Kong uttered a name and continued to step below. "Let's go." The village chief looked grim. He took Yi Futian and streaked through the air, heading outside Xuanji Mountain. All the others retreated as well. But then again, their enemy was there to hunt down Yi Futian, and there was no way they would have simply let them leave like that. Li Yao never brought much of anyone to where Xia Qingyuan was, as she had never been the target. All forces that he was able to muster were all used right there. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.